Chapter 273. LV Wenkong understood this, but he did not move. This was because he could not bear to see Zhang Leji suffer. No matter what, Zhang Leji was his junior brother. The key was that if Bai Jianmu really made a move, Zhang Leji's fate would definitely be very miserable. LV Wenkong sighed when he thought about how Bai Jianmu would torture Zhang Leji until he was no longer human. Although letting Zhang Leji go now and letting them leave the South County branch might attract more people's attention, as Bai Jianmu had said, Bai Jianmu was right. However, LV Wenkong could not make up his mind to dissuade his master. Seeing that LV Wenkong did not speak for a long time, Bai Jianmu was a little anxious. He knew that if LV Wenkong did not speak, then what they said would be much less important in Sun Xinjing's ears. At this moment, Tang Jianan finished speaking. Bai Jianmu hurriedly looked at Sun Xinjing. Just as he had guessed, Sun Xinjing was expressionless and did not respond to their word. Seeing this, Bai Jianmu hurriedly turned to look at Lu Huarong and gave him a look, indicating for him to quickly go forward and speak. Lu Huarong originally did not want to speak, but after seeing Bai Jianmu's gaze, he could only sigh in his heart. At this point, although he sympathized with Zhang Leji, he knew that if Zhang Leji was safe, then he, Lu Huarong, would not be safe either. Thinking of this, Lu Huarong hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Master, what senior brother Bai said makes sense. The matter of stealing the blueprint is of great importance. If Master lets them go easily, I'm afraid it will attract criticism and bring bad consequences. In addition, since senior brother Bai is confident in getting the blueprint back, it means that our South County branch can solve this matter ourselves. Why should we trouble others?" Although Prince Zhang agreed to retrieve the blueprint in exchange for the safety of Zhang Leji and Yi Xian, this also means that Prince Zhang is suspicious. Otherwise, he would not have the blueprint. Even if Prince Zhang has the blueprint, if I'm not wrong, it should have been given to him by Zhang Leji. The blueprint was clearly something that belonged to our South County branch, but someone took this blueprint and made a deal with us. If this matter were to spread, it would definitely be a huge blow to the reputation of our South County branch. Master, if we cooperate with Prince Zhang, it's like he's threatening us. If we don't agree to his conditions, he won't take out the blueprint. In my opinion, since Prince Zhang wants to use the blueprint to threaten us, then there's no need for us to cooperate with him. It's better to let Senior Bai look for the blueprint and then punish the person who stole it. Only then can we use the proper sect rules to let the other disciples know that if they did something wrong, they must be punished. They must not think that they can get away with it. Master, if you're worried about the blueprint, you can let senior brother Bai give it a try. When he really can't find the blueprint, then you can work with Prince Zhang. As soon as Lu Huarong finished speaking, before Sun Xinjing could answer, Bai Jianmu stepped forward and said, "Master, please believe me. As long as you let me investigate this matter, I will definitely find the blueprint. Please don't worry." After hearing what Bai Jianmu and Lu Huarong said, Sun Xinjing hesitated. For the sake of the blueprint's safety and to find it as soon as possible, he really wanted to cooperate with Zhang Meng. In his heart, as long as he found the blueprint, it didn't matter much even if he let Zhang Leji and Yi Xian go. However, after hearing what Bai Jianmu and the others said, he remembered that this was not just a matter of the blueprint. If he didn't punish the person who stole the blueprint this time, then more people would want the blueprint in the future because they all knew that even if they stole the blueprint, he would forgive them in the end. However, if Bai Jianmu was to deal with this matter, he naturally knew what would happen to Zhang Leji. If he let Bai Jianmu deal with this matter, Zhang Leji's fate would be very tragic. However, if he cooperated with Zhang Meng, it would bring about endless troubles in the future. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing was a little hesitant in his heart. After a long while, he sighed secretly, turned his head to look at Bai Jianmu, and said in a deep voice, "Can you guarantee that you will find the blueprint?" After hearing Sun Xinjing's question, Bai Jianmu was suddenly overjoyed. He knew that what he said just now was not in vain. Sun Xinjing already believed him. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "Yes, there is conclusive evidence that Zhang Leji stole the blueprint. The reason he is unwilling to take it out now is that he knows that Master can't bear to be too harsh on him, so he doesn't say anything. If Master allows me to do anything to him, I am 100% sure that I can make Zhang Leji tell me the location of the blueprint." Speaking of this, Bai Jianmu paused for a moment before continuing. "Master, please believe in me. I definitely won't let you down." Looking at the confident Bai Jianmu, Sun Xinjing sighed inwardly and waved his hand at Bai Jianmu. "Since you are so confident, go ahead and do it." Hearing this, Bai Jianmu was ecstatic. He hurriedly cupped his fists at Sun Xinjing and said loudly, "Master, please rest assured. I will definitely find the blueprint in the shortest time possible." After hearing Bai Jianmu's promise, Sun Xinjing silently turned his head, picked up the tea on the table, and took a sip. At this moment, Sun Xinjing did not feel the fragrance of the tea at all. Instead, there was only a thick bitterness. Looking at Bai Jianmu, who had turned around, and then at the pale Zhang Leji, Sun Xinjing's heart recalled bits and pieces of the past. At this moment, Bai Jianmu felt like a victor. Just now, Prince Zhang had spoken up for Zhang Leji, giving Zhang Leji time to breathe. Now, Bai Jianmu did not believe that there was anyone else who could speak up for Zhang Leji. Although eldest senior brother LV Wenkong did not speak up for him, Bai Jianmu knew very well that LV Wenkong would definitely not speak up for Zhang Leji. Tang Jinan and Lu Huarong were on his side, so they would definitely help him. The only ones left were 7th junior brother Mei Guangji and 8th junior sister Li Shuyan. These two people had not spoken from the start. Perhaps they had their own ideas and opinions, but Bai Jianmu was sure that no matter what ideas or opinions they had, they would not speak up because no one would listen to them. Since this was the case, there was no one in the hall who could save Zhang Leji. The rest would depend on his performance. As long as he used some tricks on Zhang Leji, Bai Jianmu was sure that even if Zhang Leji could hold on for a while, it would not be long. Zhang Leji would definitely follow his instructions and reveal the location of the blueprint. At that time, no matter where Zhang Leji hid the blueprint, he would be able to find it because the blueprint was with him. Chapter 274. At this moment, Zhang Leji's hopeful heart fell into the abyss once again. Zhang Leji did not know why Prince Zhang said those words. He only knew one thing, and that was that Prince Zhang wanted to save him. Although his master was still convinced by Bai Jianmu, Zhang Leji was still very grateful to Prince Zhang. At this time, he was already extremely grateful that Prince Zhang was willing to stand up for him. In fact, in Zhang Leji's eyes, Prince Zhang, who he did not know, was actually much closer to him than his fellow disciples who had been together for many years. The key was that in order to save him and Yi Xian, Prince Zhang dared to say that he would use the blueprint to exchange for the two of them. Zhang Leji naturally knew how precious that blueprint was. It was a huge favor to be willing to use such a precious blueprint to exchange for his and Yi Xian's safety. Thinking of this, Zhang Leji suddenly cupped his fists and said to Zhang Meng, "Thank you, Prince Zhang, for your righteous words." Zhang Leji is extremely grateful. At this point, Zhang Leji smiled bitterly and continued, "I'm afraid that I won't be able to keep Prince Zhang's kindness in this lifetime. In my next life, Zhang Leji will definitely repay Prince Zhang's kindness." After hearing Zhang Leji's words, Sun Xinjing felt a wave of anger in his heart. He had painstakingly taught him for so many years, but at this moment, he had become an evil person, and Prince Zhang had become the best person in the world. When he thought of this, Sun Xinjing felt his heart tremble with anger. Could it be that Zhang Leji had stolen his blueprint? Was there any reason for him to do this? After hearing Zhang Leji's words, Zhang Meng was secretly delighted. After waiting for so long and listening to Bai Jianmu's nonsense for so long, He had been waiting for this moment. Zhang Meng had already thought about it. He would spend money to hire a mechanism master at the South County branch, and he would have to wait in line. Moreover, the mechanism he built was not the best. However, if he could pull Zhang Leji and Yi Xian to his side, wouldn't that mean that he would have 2 machine engineers working for him? When the time came, Yi Xian and Zhang Leji would be at his beck and call. He could build the auction house however he wanted. It was precisely because of this thought that Zhang Meng had endured for so long, allowing Bai Jianmu to run rampant for so long. His goal was naturally to let Bai Jianmu chase Yi Xian and Yi Xian to the brink of despair. At that time, Zhang Meng would step in to save them. Naturally, it would be twice the result with half the effort, making Zhang Leji and Zhang Xian completely loyal to him. Zhang Meng had already understood what Zhang Leji had just said. In other words, Zhang Leji was already convinced. If he rescued him now, he would definitely work for him. However, this was not the perfect situation yet because there was still Yi Xian, and Yi Xian had not agreed to be loyal to him. Thinking of this, Zhang Meng turned to look at Sun Xinjing and said with a smile, "Branch leader's son, don't you think that something is missing?" After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Sun Xinjing could not help but be stunned. He looked around and asked in confusion, "Prince Zhang, what do you mean by that? What is missing?" Zhang Meng shook his head. "What is missing is not something, but people. Since Bai Jianmu already believes that Zhang Leji and Yi Xian are the ones who stole the blueprint, isn't it a little wrong for him to want to interrogate them before Yi Xian is even present?" Speaking of this, Zhang Meng paused for a moment before continuing, "Bai Jianmu's guess just now is very reasonable. Yi Xian knows where branch leader's son put the blueprint, so he can only be the one who stole it. After Yi Xian stole the blueprint, he left it with Zhang Leji. It is precisely because of this that Bai Jianmu was able to find the bronze box at Zhang Leji's place." Speaking of this, Zhang Meng turned to look at Bai Jianmu and asked with a smile, "Bai Jianmu, I'm right? You think so too, right?" After listening to Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jianmu was stunned. What is this Prince Zhang doing? He has been speaking up for Zhang Leji and Yi Xian, but now he agrees with me. Why is this happening? Bai Jianmu was really a little confused. However, even if Bai Jianmu was confused, he didn't dare to be careless. He asked tentatively, "Prince Zhang, what do you mean by this?" Zhang Meng smiled. "Nothing. I just want to say that your guess is not thorough enough. Think about it. If Yi Xian stole the blueprint, would he have given it to Zhang Leji? On the other hand, Bai Jianmu, if you stole the blueprint, would you have shown such a precious blueprint to others?" After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jianmu was really stunned. He really couldn't figure out what Prince Zhang meant. In fact, Bai Jianmu wasn't the only one in the hall who was stunned by Zhang Meng. Everyone was stunned. Eldest senior brother LV Wenkong looked at Zhang Meng in confusion. He didn't know what Zhang Meng was trying to do. If it was like what Zhang Meng said, if it was him who stole the blueprint, would he show it to others? No. LV Wenkong thought about it carefully and gave an answer. Of course not. If the things on the blueprint were seen by others, it would mean that the things on the blueprint would be learned by others. If Yi Xian gave the drawing to Zhang Leji would definitely check the contents of the drawing first, even though he knew Yi Xian would take it back. He might even make a copy of it to use for his cultivation in the future. Bai Jianmu naturally thought of the answer that LV Wenkong thought of. He looked at Zhang Meng in surprise. "Prince Zhang, what do you mean?" After hearing Bai Jianmu's question, Zhang Meng nodded. "You're right. Based on my guess, even if Yi Xian stole the blueprint, he definitely wouldn't have given it to Zhang Leji." After hearing Zhang Meng's words, LV Wenkong couldn't help but ask hurriedly, "Prince Zhang, if Yi Xian wouldn't have given the blueprint to Zhang Leji, what's going on with the bronze box?" After hearing LV Wenkong's question, Zhang Meng smiled and replied, "There are many possibilities. Of course, the most likely one is that Yi Xian was afraid that Zhang Leji would see the contents of the blueprint, so he hid it and only gave an empty bronze box to Zhang Leji. That's why Bai Jinmu could only find the bronze box and not the blueprint. Upon hearing Zhang Meng's words, although Bai Jinmu knew that Zhang Meng was talking nonsense, he couldn't figure out what Zhang Meng was trying to say. However, no matter what Zhang Meng said, Bai Jinmu knew very well that it wouldn't affect his plan at this moment. Bai Jinmu thought for a moment, then hurriedly cupped his fists at Sun Xinjing and said loudly, "Master, regardless of whether Prince Zhang is right or not, I think we should interrogate Zhang Leji first and see if we can get any clues from him. Then we can talk about other things." Bai Jinmu didn't want Zhang Meng's words to affect Sun Xinjing. His plan was to interrogate Zhang Leji first, take the opportunity to cripple him, and then interrogate Yi Xian. Chapter 275. Bai Jinmu was very clear that he had to cripple both Yi Xian and Zhang Leji before he could be completely at ease. After hearing Bai Jinmu's words, Sun Xinjing nodded. Since he had already let Bai Jinmu handle this matter, he didn't want to say anything more. Seeing Sun Xinjing nod, Bai Jinmu was relieved and prepared to start implementing his plan. However, seeing this scene, Zhang Meng was a little dissatisfied. Bai Jinmu had a plan, and so did he. Bai Jinmu's plan was to cripple both Yi Xian and Zhang Leji to get rid of future troubles. Zhang Meng's plan was to let Yi Xian and Zhang Leji be grateful to him. Then, he would drag them out. This way, he would have two machinists subordinate. If he wanted to build anything in the future, he wouldn't have to beg others. However, Zhang Meng's plan was only halfway through because only Zhang Leji was grateful to him and was willing to work for him. Yi Xian was still locked up in the Repentance Pavilion and hadn't been tortured by Bai Jinmu. Even if he rescued him, he was afraid that he would still remember the kindness of his master and wouldn't work for him. Then, wouldn't his efforts be in vain? What plan Bai Jinmu had, and whether he could become a branch leader, had nothing to do with Zhang Meng. Sun Xinjing was old and muddle-headed, and couldn't see the truth of the matter. This had nothing to do with Zhang Meng. What he wanted most at the moment was to let Bai Jinmu torture Yi Xian as soon as possible so that he could seize the opportunity to subdue Yi Xian and Zhang Leji. Then he would leave as soon as possible to build his super auction house. Seeing that Bai Jinmu was about to make a move, Zhang Meng hurriedly turned to Sun Xinjing and said, "Branch leader Sun, now that we have confirmed that Yi Xian is the person who stole the blueprint, I think you should bring Yi Xian over and let Bai Jinmu interrogate him together. Wouldn't this save a lot of trouble, and we can find the blueprint as soon as possible?" At this point, Zhang Meng turned to look at Bai Jinmu and said with a smile, "Bai Jinmu, I believe that with your ability, you should be able to find the blueprint's whereabouts faster if you interrogate the two of them together, right?" After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jinmu blinked. For a moment, he couldn't understand Zhang Meng's plan and was speechless. At that moment, Zhang Leji was staring at Zhang Meng with his mouth agape. He didn't know who this young master Zhang was. Yi Xian's wanted to prove that he and himself and Yi Waren's prove? But now, his analysis was even more thorough than Bai Jinmu's. After Yi Xian stole the blueprint, he was afraid that Zhang Leji would see the contents of the blueprint, so he only gave the bronze box to Zhang Leji. To be honest, Zhang Leji thought that Prince Zhang was right. However, he didn't expect Prince Zhang to change his mind so quickly. He was originally his most trusted comrade, but in the blink of an eye, he had become his enemy. Although Prince Zhang's words might prove that he wasn't the one who stole the blueprint, he definitely couldn't escape the crime of being an accomplice to Yi Xian. Zhang Leji's heart ached at the thought of this. The blueprint's matter clearly had nothing to do with him, but no one spoke up for him even though he had suffered such a great injustice. Not only that, even his most trusted Prince Zhang was starting to suspect him. LV Wenkong, on the other hand, was thinking differently from Zhang Leji. He was wondering if young Master Zhang's words made sense. Yi Xian was afraid that Zhang Leji would see the contents of the blueprint, so he only gave him the bronze box. This was also the reason why Bai Jianmu only found the bronze box. This meant that Zhang Leji didn't know where the blueprint was, and the only person who knew where it was Yi Xian. Prince Zhang's suggestion to bring Yi Xian over to question Zhang Leji seemed to make sense. Thinking of this, LV Wenkong stepped forward and said, "Master, Prince Zhang's words make sense. If the blueprint was really stolen by Yi Xian, then he really didn't have a reason to give it to Zhang Leji. If that's the case, the only person who knows about the blueprint is Yi Xian. If Prince Zhang's guess is true, then it's useless for us to question Zhang Leji because he really doesn't know where the blueprint is. Master, why don't you bring Yi Xian over and let Junior Bai question him as well? If Yi Xian remembers Master's kindness, he might suddenly repent and hand over the blueprint. Wouldn't that save us a lot of trouble?" After hearing LV Wenkong's words, Bai Jianmu was a little anxious. If he really brought Yi Xian over and only questioned Yi Xian, wouldn't that mean that he had to let Zhang Leji off the hook? Thinking of this, he didn't wait for Sun Xinjing to answer LV Wenkong's question. He cupped his fists and said, "Master, you mustn't do that. If I bring Yi Xian over and they both testify, then it'll be even more difficult to get the blueprint back. Master, please reconsider. From your disciple's point of view, let me question Zhang Leji first. If I really can't get anything out of him, then bring Yi Xian over for questioning." Although Tang Jianan didn't understand what Bai Jianmu meant, since Bai Jianmu had said so, he could only support him unconditionally. This was because if Bai Jianmu fell, then it was time for him to be unlucky. Thinking of this, Tang Jianan hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Master, what Junior Bai said makes sense. If we bring Yi Xian here, what if the two of them collude to confess? Wouldn't it make this case even more complicated? Master, since Junior Bai is confident that he can find the blueprint, then let Junior Bai do it. The most important thing now is the blueprint. As long as Junior Bai can find the blueprint, then everything will be fine." Seeing that both her senior brothers had spoken, Lu Huarong had no choice but to step forward and say, "Master, what Senior Bai said does make sense. Did you forget that when Prince Zhang questioned me and Senior Bai just now, he almost made a mistake and made everyone suspect Senior Bai? In my opinion, Senior Bai is right. First, we should ask Zhang Leji. If we really can't get anything out of him, then we can ask Yi Xian. At least we won't be in a mess and should be able to find the blueprint faster. Master, in order to find the blueprint as soon as possible, let Senior Bai do it." After hearing Tang Jianan and Lu Huarong's words, Bai Jianmu nodded in satisfaction. No matter what, he was lucky to have found two helpers. Otherwise, it wouldn't be enough for him to speak on his own. Now, with Tang Jianan and Lu Huarong's suggestions, Bai Jianmu believed that Sun Xinjing should be able to agree to his request. Bai Jianmu swore that as long as Sun Xinjing agreed to his request this time, he would never hesitate again. He would do it as soon as possible and cripple Zhang Leji first. What made Bai Jianmu puzzled was what Prince Zhang was thinking. Even if he did as Prince Zhang said and brought Yi Xian over for questioning, it didn't seem to help. Since it didn't make any sense, then why did Prince Zhang do it? Bai Jianmu really couldn't figure out this question. Chapter 276. Although Bai Jianmu didn't understand what Prince Zhang was thinking, he didn't want to let Prince Zhang ruin his plan. If he followed Prince Zhang's instructions and brought Yi Xian here to interrogate Zhang Leji, he would have to ask Yi Xian first. In that case, he had no choice but to ask Yi Xian first, because all his assumptions were based on the location of Yi Xian's guiding plan. If Yi Xian refused to admit it, then there would be no point in asking Zhang Leji. The assumption just now was that after Yi Xian stole the blueprint, he gave the bronze box to Zhang Leji, and Zhang Leji didn't know where the blueprint was hidden. In that case, Bai Jianmu could only be ruthless to Bai Jianmu and let Zhang Leji off the hook. Bai Jianmu didn't want to see such an outcome. His plan was to cripple both of them to prevent future trouble. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu hurriedly said, "Master, we have to confirm that this bronze box was indeed given to Zhang Leji by Yi Xian before we can continue investigating. If this bronze box wasn't given to Zhang Leji by Yi Xian, then there's no need to ask Yi Xian. Master, we have to do things first. In my opinion, we should ask Zhang Leji first, then Yi Xian. That's the right way to go." Sun Xinjing nodded when he heard this. Bai Jianmu was right. Everything he said just now was just an assumption. Yi Xian gave the bronze box to Zhang Leji. But the biggest problem was whether there was a blueprint in the bronze box when Yi Xian gave it to Zhang Leji. Or rather, would Yi Xian give the blueprint to Zhang Leji? Bai Jianmu's idea was to ask Zhang Leji first, then ask Yi Xian after confirming this matter. There was another advantage to doing this. It would prevent Yi Xian and Zhang Leji from giving false statements, which would make the case more difficult to investigate. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing nodded. "All right then. Bai Jianmu, continue with the questioning." Bai Jianmu was overjoyed when he heard Sun Xinjing's order. He quickly turned around and walked towards Zhang Leji. Bai Jianmu was satisfied, but Zhang Meng stared at Sun Xinjing with his mouth agape. This old fellow was a muddle-headed worm. Seeing that Bai Jianmu was about to make a move, Zhang Meng quickly shouted again. "Wait!" After shouting this, Zhang Meng turned to look at Sun Xinjing and said, "Branch leader Sun Xinjing, since you've confirmed that Yi Xian stole the blueprint, why are you still questioning Zhang Leji?" Then paused for a moment to continue. "You have to be accurate when doing things. It's like scratching your hand when you have an itch on your back. How can you solve the main problem by doing that? Branch leader Sun, I think you should bring Yi Xian here first and ask Yi Xian clearly. That's the right thing to do. As for Zhang Leji, even if he's involved in this matter, he's at most an accomplice. We won't be able to get any useful clues from him. Instead, we'll be wasting a lot of time." As he spoke, Zhang Meng looked at Sun Xinjing and Bai Jianmu. He was afraid that Bai Jianmu would secretly make a move and do something unfavorable to Zhang Leji. He could also tell that Bai Jianmu didn't want to ask Zhang Leji, but wanted to deal with Zhang Leji. This result was definitely not what Zhang Meng wanted. If Bai Jianmu crippled Zhang Leji, then it would be useless even if Zhang Leji joined them. Sure enough, things were just as Zhang Meng had guessed. Bai Jianmu had received Sun Xinjing's order this time and had already made up his mind. He definitely couldn't let the situation change. Therefore, as long as Sun Xinjing didn't say anything, he had to finish this matter as soon as possible. As long as he acted quickly and crippled Zhang Leji first, it would be useless even if Zhang Meng stopped him. Since he had already made up his mind, Bai Jianmu quickly walked toward Zhang Leji while listening to the conversation between Zhang Meng and Sun Xinjing. At the same time, he had already poured energy into his palm, ready to attack as soon as he got close to Zhang Leji. Bai Jianmu took 2 steps forward and arrived in front of Zhang Leji. A sinister smile appeared on his face as he raised his hand high and slapped it toward Zhang Leji's shoulder at lightning speed. Looking at the sinister smile on Bai Jianmu's face, Zhang Leji sighed inwardly. It was over. Bai Jianmu had been talking for so long, and Zhang Leji could already tell that Bai Jianmu was only satisfied because he wanted to attack him. As for why Bai Jianmu wanted to attack him, Zhang Leji didn't need to think to know the reason. Bai Jianmu was definitely worried about him and wanted to cripple him. Seeing Bai Jianmu's hand coming toward him, Zhang Leji's heart grew colder and colder. It was as if he had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cellar, instantly freezing him to the spot. Zhang Leji wanted to resist. He wasn't willing to be crippled by Bai Jianmu. He wanted to raise his hand to block, but just as he raised his hand, he was shocked to find that Bai Jianmu's hand was about to hit his shoulder. Bai Jianmu was about to succeed when he suddenly heard Zhang Meng's voice. Enough, can't you hear me? Zhang Meng's voice wasn't loud, but in Bai Jianmu's ears, it was like a sharp thorn piercing into his brain, causing him to tremble violently. The true qi that was constantly circulating in his body also began to flow in reverse because of his trembling, returning to his dantian. And the hand he used to pat Zhang Leji's shoulder had already lost its strength because of the reversal of the true qi. Bai Jianmu's pat was just like an ordinary person's. It didn't bring any harm to Zhang Leji. Bai Jianmu was stunned. He placed his hand on Zhang Leji's shoulder, and for a moment, he forgot to take it back. Bai Jianmu didn't expect that his attack this time would fail just because of Zhang Meng's words. Zhang Leji looked at Bai Jianmu with a dumbfounded expression. He didn't expect that Bai Jianmu's smirk was really just a greeting. What was going on? Bai Jianmu didn't understand why his attack failed. Zhang Leji also didn't understand why he didn't feel any pain from Bai Jianmu's fierce slap. After a long while, Bai Jianmu slowly withdrew his hand, but he didn't attack again. He was a cautious person. Before things were clear, he wouldn't attack recklessly. Bai Jianmu withdrew his hand and stood in place without saying a word. He silently circulated the true qi in his body, wanting to see if he had gone mad. As soon as Bai Jianmu thought about it, the true qi in his dantian immediately followed his thoughts as usual and connected to each meridian. In the blink of an eye, Bai Jianmu felt that his palm was filled with true qi again, and the familiar strength of the past also returned. Feeling that his true qi wasn't damaged, Bai Jianmu was slightly relieved. At the same time, he began to have some doubts in his heart. What happened just now? Could it be because of Prince Zhang's words? But that couldn't be right. Bai Jianmu only heard that the lion's roar was very powerful and could bring harm to the enemy. Chapter 277. The lion's roar technique was indeed very powerful. It could cause internal injuries to people with low internal strength. Just the powerful sound alone could kill them. However, Bai Jianmu was certain that Prince Zhang definitely didn't use the lion's roar technique. The reason why the lion's roar technique was so powerful was because the sound was so loud that it could cripple a person. However, young Master Zhang's voice wasn't loud. Bai Jianmu believed that everyone present had heard what he said. However, he looked around and didn't see anyone who was shocked by his word. Since Prince Zhang's words weren't uttered using the lion's roar technique, then what was going on? Just as Bai Jianmu was letting his imagination run wild, Zhang Meng saw that he had stopped and ignored him. He continued to speak to Sun Xinjing. Division Leader Sun, since Yi Xian is the person who stole the blueprint, even if you want to ask, you should ask Yi Xian directly. As long as you get Yi Xian to tell you the location where the blueprint was placed, wouldn't it be very easy to find the blueprint? At this point, Zhang Meng paused for a moment before continuing. Moreover, Division Leader Sun is a benevolent person. If Yi Xian was brought here, he would definitely be moved by Division Leader Sun's benevolence. Then, he would turn over a new leaf and repent. Without Bai Jianmu's questioning, he would immediately admit his crimes and take out the blueprint. Division Leader Sun, don't you think so? Everyone in the hall lowered their heads after hearing Zhang Meng's words. They felt that what he said was a little too much. Although these words sounded a little awkward in the ears of others, Sun Xinjing was a little moved when he heard it. Sun Xinjing felt that he treated his disciples well, especially Yi Xian. He was already grooming him to be the next division leader. Prince Zhang was right. I treated Yi Xian so well. Perhaps after seeing me, Yi Xian would remember my kindness to him in the past and repent. It wasn't impossible for him to take the initiative to admit his mistake. Thinking of this, a smile suddenly appeared on Sun Xinjing's face. Just as he was about to speak, Bai Jianmu hurriedly spoke up. Master, you can't do that. Prince Zhang is just an outsider. What's more, he's still a suspect. How can we listen to him so easily? Master, please reconsider. You must not agree to his request. Hearing Bai Jianmu's anxious words, Tang Jianan didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly said, Master, you can't listen to Prince Zhang. We're not sure where the blueprint is right now. Just listen to Prince Zhang. If the blueprint is really in Prince Zhang's hands, it would be terrible if Yi Xian is brought here and something goes wrong. Master, please reconsider. Speaking of this, Tang Jianan paused for a moment before continuing. Master, if Prince Zhang has evil intentions, this matter is not good. Maybe Prince Zhang doesn't know where the blueprint is. If he wants to know where the blueprint is, he can only see Yi Xian. If Yi Xian is brought here and meets Prince Zhang, they might have a secret message that we don't know about. If Yi Xian sees Prince Zhang when he comes and uses a secret message to tell Prince Zhang the location of the blueprint, wouldn't that be terrible? Master, although these are just my guesses, we have to be careful. If this really happens, the consequences will be unimaginable. After hearing Tang Jianan's words, Lu Huarong didn't want to be outdone and hurriedly stepped forward. Master, second senior brother's words make sense. You can think about it carefully. Why did Prince Zhang insist that senior brother Bai ask Yi Xian first? Isn't this suspicious? Just like what we told senior brother Bai just now, although young Master Zhang's question was strange, after our reminder, senior brother Bai still knew the real answer. Master, this means that if Yi Xian is brought here, he will definitely use this method to tell Prince Zhang the location of the blueprint. In other words, Yi Xian's method is even more complicated. The method we told senior brother Bai just now was just a temporary idea. If Yi Xian and Prince Zhang had agreed on a very complicated method to tell Prince Zhang the location of the blueprint, then we definitely wouldn't have discovered it. Master, when the time comes, even if Yi Xian told Prince Zhang the location of the blueprint in front of us, I'm afraid we would still be in the dark. Master, since senior brother Bai is confident that he can find the blueprint, why don't we follow senior brother Bai's method and ask senior brother Bai to do his best to find the blueprint? This way there won't be any mistakes. Master, please reconsider. After hearing the three's words, Sun Xinjing's expression, which had been slightly moved by Zhang Meng's words, returned to normal. Sun Xinjing didn't pay much attention to what Tang Jianan and Bai Jianmu said, but Lu Huarong's words shocked him. Because Lu Huarong's words made a lot of sense. If Yi Xian was brought here and there really was a secret method between him and Prince Zhang, then it might really be like what Lu Huarong said. Even if Yi Xian told Prince Zhang the location of the blueprint in front of them, they definitely wouldn't know. Originally, Sun Xinjing was puzzled. Bai Jianmu clearly wanted to ask Zhang Leji first, so why did Prince Zhang bring Yi Xian here first to ask him together? According to Lu Huarong's explanation, all of this made sense. Prince Zhang's motive was to meet Yi Xian and use a secret method to get Yi Xian to remind him of the blueprint's location. Prince Zhang also said that the blueprint wasn't with him. This meant that he also needed to find the blueprint before he could use it to exchange for Yi Xian and Zhang Leji. Was this Prince Zhang's real motive? With Lu Huarong's reminder, Sun Xinjing increasingly felt that his suspicions were real. Prince Zhang's actions were suspicious from the beginning. First, he built the auction house, which already made Sun Xinjing suspicious. Then, he used strange questions to ask Lu Huarong and Bai Jianmu. He wanted to use these strange questions to stop Bai Jianmu and Lu Huarong and take the opportunity to accuse them of stealing the blueprint. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing secretly rejoiced. If it weren't for Bai Jianmu's quick wits, he was afraid that he would have been deceived by Prince Zhang. Then, Prince Zhang kept speaking up for Zhang Leji and Yi Xian. Although Sun Xinjing had already stopped Prince Zhang from speaking, he still spoke up for Yi Xian and Zhang Leji. This made Sun Xinjing even more suspicious. If Yi Xian and Zhang Leji weren't in cahoots with Prince Zhang, why would Prince Zhang keep speaking up for Yi Xian and Zhang Leji? Prince Zhang spoke up for Yi Xian and Zhang Liji. The only possibility was that they were in cahoots and Prince Zhang had no choice but to speak up for them. Then, seeing that the situation was irreversible, Prince Zhang proposed to ask Yi Xian first. Chapter 278. At first, Sun Xinjing didn't understand why Prince Zhang wanted to ask Yi Xian first, but now he understood. After Lu Huarong's reminder, he felt like he understood everything. Prince Zhang's goal was that blueprint. He wanted people to bring Yi Xian here so that Yi Xian would tell him where the blueprint was hidden. This was Prince Zhang's real goal. After understanding all this, Sun Xinjing's anger suddenly rose in his heart. He turned his head to look at Zhang Meng and said coldly, "Prince Zhang, what else do you have to say now?" At this moment, Zhang Meng was also dumbfounded. Bai Jianmu and the other two guys were too powerful. For such a simple matter, they could actually come up with so many tricks and make it sound so reasonable. The reason he had come here was for that blueprint. At first, he wanted to solve this problem fairly, but Bai Jianmu and the other two said that he was in cahoots with Yi Xian and the others. He said that he wanted to bring Yi Xian here first so that it would be easier to ask them together. In the end, these three guys said that he wanted to know where the blueprint was hidden. Looking at Bai Jianmu, who couldn't help but sneer in front of him, Zhang Meng was also amazed. It wasn't Sun Xinjing's fault that he was old and muddle-headed, but Bai Jianmu was too cunning. They were a group of mad dogs. Whoever dared to speak up for Yi Xian and Yi Xian would immediately be said to be their accomplices. Not only that, but they also said it with reason and evidence, making it hard for people to not believe them. Until now, Zhang Meng was still a little doubtful. What exactly did he come here for? Just as Zhang Meng was sighing with emotion, Sun Xinjing's cold voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Zhang Meng turned his head with a bitter smile and looked at Sun Xinjing's frosty face. He sighed and said slowly, "Division Leader Sun, the South County branch really has countless talents." After hearing Zhang Meng's answer, Sun Xinjing became even angrier. Although Prince Zhang's words were meant as a compliment, Sun Xinjing didn't hear any hint of praise. Instead, there was a hint of sarcasm. Sun Xinjing took a deep breath and asked again, "Prince Zhang, tell me, what do you mean by asking Yi Xian?" Seeing that Sun Xinjing was so angry, Zhang Meng quickly waved his hand. "Division Leader Sun, don't be anxious. I don't mean anything else. I suggest asking Yi Xian first. I can guarantee that it's definitely not what Lu Huarong said." At this point, Zhang Meng paused before continuing, "Division Leader Sun, since you're afraid that Yi Xian will secretly remind me of the location of the blueprint, you can ask him to turn around. As long as he can't see me, he naturally won't tell me the location of the blueprint." At this point, Zhang Meng turned to look at Lu Huarong and asked with a smile, "Lu Huarong, tell me, if Yi Xian has his back to me, will he still remind me?" After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Lu Huarong suddenly froze. When he came back to his senses, he said, "Prince Zhang, you shouldn't ask me this. You should ask yourself." At this point, Lu Huarong turned around and looked at Sun Xinjing. He clasped his fists and said, "Master, there are all kinds of strange things in this world. I think that if Yi Xian obtains a certain method, he might reveal the location of the blueprint even if his back is facing everyone. We have to guard against that." When Zhang Meng heard this, he asked curiously, "Lu Huarong, tell me, if you have your back to everyone, how will you remind them?" After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Lu Huarong shook his head. "How would I know what you guys came up with? In short, I think that as long as you guys want to do this, you must have already planned it. When the time comes, even if Yi Xian has his back to you, I'm afraid that he will still have a way to tell you." After hearing Lu Huarong's words, Zhang Meng found it funny and said with a smile, "If that's the case, why don't we wait for Yi Xian to come? The two of us will have our backs to each other. This way, Yi Xian won't be able to remind me." After saying this, Zhang Meng looked at Lu Huarong with a smile. He didn't believe that if the two of them had their backs to each other and couldn't see each other, they would be able to transmit any information. This time, he wanted to see how Lu Huarong would answer. Sure enough, after hearing Zhang Meng's words, Lu Huarong was stunned for a moment. However, he quickly reacted and said with a sneer, "Prince Zhang, don't take any chances. I can tell you that there are many ways to transmit information. Other than looking at each other, don't forget that sound can also transmit information. Even if the two of you have your backs to each other, you should still be able to hear each other's voices. I remember that there is some kind of secret signal that is transmitted by both sides through sound. So, even if you and Yi Xian have their backs to each other, as long as you can speak, you can still transmit information to each other." After hearing Lu Huarong's words, Zhang Meng was a little dissatisfied and continued to speak. "Lu Huarong, since you said that sound can also transmit information, why don't we do this? When Yi Xian comes, plug my ears. Then we'll have our backs to each other. If we do this, I won't be able to see Yi Xian's expression or hear Yi Xian's voice. This way, Yi Xian won't be able to transmit information to us." After saying this, Zhang Meng looked at Lu Huarong proudly. He didn't believe that Yi Xian would be able to transmit information to him with their backs to each other and ears plugged. He wanted to see what else Lu Huarong had to say. Unfortunately, Zhang Meng still miscalculated. Lu Huarong only thought for a moment before he sneered and said, "Prince Zhang, I can't help but admire you. You are really too cunning. You want to use this method to deceive Master." Zhang Meng was stunned when he heard this. He asked doubtfully, "Lu Huarong, if I have my back to Yi Xian and my ears plugged, will Yi Xian still be able to transmit information to me?" After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Lu Huarong turned to look at Sun Xinjing. He cupped his fists and said, "Master, there are many ways to transmit information. Even if Prince Zhang has his back to Yi Xian and plugs his ears, he can still transmit information." After saying this, Lu Huarong paused for a moment before he continued. "Under these circumstances, if Yi Xian leaves any traces on the ground, we won't be able to tell what they are. However, once Prince Zhang sees them, he will immediately understand what Yi Xian is trying to say." "Master, don't tell me you don't think this is possible?" After saying this, Lu Huarong paused for a moment. Then, without waiting for anyone to answer, he continued. "Other than leaving traces with footprints, don't forget that Zhang Leji is also here. If Yi Xian sends any information to Zhang Leji, after this matter blows over, Zhang Leji will also tell Prince Zhang. When the time comes, Prince Zhang will also know the location of the blueprint." After saying this, Lu Huarong sighed. "This is also the reason why we can't ask Yi Xian first." Chapter 279. At this moment, Zhang Meng was shocked beyond words. Looking at the supposedly honest and taciturn Lu Huarong in front of him, he didn't know what to say. After a long while, Zhang Meng finally came to his senses. He looked at Lu Huarong and asked with a smile, "Do you know how to do all the methods you mentioned?" After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Lu Huarong was stunned. Then, he shook his head. "Prince Zhang, you must be joking. How could I know such despicable methods?" Zhang Meng said, "Since you don't know how to do it, how do you know that there are such methods?" Lu Huarong said, "If I don't know how to do it, can't I have heard of it?" After hearing Lu Huarong's answer, Zhang Meng was a little disappointed. He thought that Lu Huarong would know how to do it. Since Lu Huarong didn't know how to do it, Zhang Meng wasn't in the mood to continue talking to him. He turned to look at Sun Xinjing and said with a smile, "Division Leader Sun, you don't think that Yi Xian and I know how to do it, do you? Even if we have our backs to each other, we won't be able to hear each other's voices and can only rely on our footprints to transmit information?" Originally, Sun Xinjing didn't think about these things. That was why he listened to Zhang Meng's suggestion and wanted to bring Yi Xian over for questioning. However, after hearing Lu Huarong's words, he hesitated. Prince Zhang's whereabouts were suspicious. He had to be on guard against people like him. If what Lu Huarong said was true, once Yi Xian was brought over, Yi Xian could use Lu Huarong's method to send a message to Prince Zhang and tell him where the blueprint was hidden. When he thought of this possibility, Sun Xinjing dismissed the idea of letting Yi Xian come over. What Lu Huarong said might not happen, but Sun Xinjing would not take the risk. This blueprint was so precious. If something happened, he would be ashamed to face his master. After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Sun Xinjing thought for a while and then slowly said, "There are many strange people and strange things in Jianghu. As for whether Prince Zhang knows these methods, I don't know." After listening to Sun Xinjing's words, Zhang Meng immediately understood that Sun Xinjing believed Lu Huarong's words. Seeing that Sun Xinjing believed Lu Huarong's words, Zhang Meng was a little anxious. Just now, he saw Zhang Leji being questioned by Bai Jianmu and the other two until he was speechless. In the end, he was framed as the person who stole the blueprint. At that time, Zhang Meng felt that Zhang Leji was in the right, but he was speechless because of other people's words. He was simply too incompetent and useless. Now that it was his turn, Zhang Meng realized that Zhang Leji was not to be blamed for being incompetent or useless. It was just that Bai Jianmu and the other two guys were too cunning. They could almost make a dead person come back to life with their words. Originally, Zhang Meng had already seen that Sun Xinjing also agreed with his statement. He was prepared to bring Yi Xian over for questioning. However, Lu Huarong's words made Sun Xinjing dismiss his idea. To be honest, Zhang Meng had already thought about it. Even if he was Sun Xinjing, he would probably believe Lu Huarong's words after hearing them. However, would Zhang Meng be afraid? Absolutely not. Zhang Meng thought for a while, then looked at Lu Huarong and asked with a smile, "Lu Huarong, tell me the truth. What do we have to do to make Yi Xian come here and accept your questioning?" After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Lu Huarong was stunned again. He really couldn't answer Zhang Meng's question. Subconsciously, he turned his head to look at Bai Jianmu. Seeing that Lu Huarong didn't answer his question, he turned his head to look at Bai Jianmu. Zhang Meng didn't say anything. He just sat there and looked at the two of them with interest. He wanted to see what they would do. When Bai Jianmu saw Lu Huarong looking at him, he knew that Lu Huarong didn't know what he was thinking. He turned his head to look at Zhang Meng and said coldly, "Prince Zhang, aren't you being a little too nosy? This is our sex matter. I hope that Prince Zhang won't poke his nose into other people's business." Speaking up to this point, Bai Jianmu paused before continuing, "As for why you want to ask Zhang Leji first, I have no comment." Hearing Bai Jianmu's rude words, Zhang Meng didn't get angry. Instead, he asked with a smile, "Bai Jianmu, since you don't want to say, let me guess. There are a few possibilities as to why you want to ask Zhang Leji first before asking Yi Xian. First, you know for sure that Zhang Leji is the one who stole the blueprint. He knows the location of the blueprint. As long as you ask him, you can find the blueprint as soon as possible. Second, you did it on purpose because you want to use this opportunity to take revenge on Zhang Leji. First, you torture him. Then, you use the excuse that you can't get anything out of him to ask Yi Xian. Then, you torture him again. Third, you were the one who stole the blueprint. You wanted to interrogate Zhang Leji first, make him admit it, and then use the blueprint to frame him. Fourth, your intelligence is low. If you ask two people at the same time, you're afraid that you won't be able to get enough information. That's why you ask them one by one. As soon as Zhang Meng finished speaking, there was a burst of laughter in the hall. However, this laughter only lasted for a moment before it disappeared. At this moment, Bai Jianmu's expression changed drastically. He looked at Zhang Meng with a cold glint in his eyes. After a long while, Bai Jianmu suppressed the anger in his heart. It wasn't that he didn't want to get angry, but he knew that this wasn't the time to complicate matters. Zhang Meng definitely didn't have any contact with Zhang Leji. Bai Jianmu knew this very well because he was the one who stole the blueprint. Bai Jianmu thought for a moment, then turned to look at Sun Xinjing. He clasped his fist and said, "Master, Prince Zhang spoke rudely. I think it's better to ask Prince Zhang to leave so that he won't disturb the order here." Zhang Meng's words just now also amused Sun Xinjing. After hearing Bai Jianmu's suggestion, Sun Xinjing quickly stopped smiling and turned to look at Zhang Meng. He said apologetically, "Prince Zhang, you must be tired from the long journey. Why don't you go to the guest room and rest first? When things are over here, I'll ask someone to invite Prince Zhang to welcome you back." Sun Xinjing's words were very polite. What he meant was that he wanted to tell Zhang Meng to leave quickly. There was nothing for him to do here. However, although Sun Xinjing wanted Zhang Meng to leave, Zhang Meng didn't want to leave because his plan hadn't been completed yet. How could he leave here? Zhang Meng said with a smile, "Leader Sun, you're too polite. I'm not tired. You can continue. I promise I won't talk anymore. You can ask whatever you want and do whatever you want. I won't make trouble anymore." Sun Xinjing heard this and said unhappily, "Prince Zhang, I think you'd better rest first." Before he could finish his words, Zhang Meng waved his hand and interrupted him. Zhang Meng stopped Sun Xinjing from speaking. He turned to look at Bai Jianmu and said with a smile, "Bai Jianmu, you can continue. I won't disturb you." After saying this, Zhang Meng turned to Sun Xinjing and said, "Leader Sun, please forgive me. I've never seen such an inquiry before. Please let me see it." Chapter 280. After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Sun Xinjing thought for a moment and nodded. Sun Xinjing agreed to Zhang Meng's request not because he agreed with Zhang Meng's words, but because Bai Jianmu and the others had said that Zhang Meng was very likely to be in contact with Zhang Leji and the others. His purpose for coming here was to get the blueprint. The main characters of the South County branch were all in this hall. If Zhang Meng left this hall and secretly ran away with the blueprint, there was nothing he could do. Instead of worrying about Zhang Meng running away, it was better to let Zhang Meng be in front of him. Even if he wanted to run away, he could not. This was Sun Xinjing's true goal. Before the blueprint was found, even if Zhang Meng wanted to leave this hall, Sun Xinjing would not agree. In fact, it did not matter to Bai Jianmu whether Zhang Meng left this hall or not. As long as Zhang Meng did not hinder him, he did not want to care where Zhang Meng was. At this moment, after seeing Sun Xinjing nod, Bai Jianmu decided not to waste any more time. He first cupped his fists at Sun Xinjing and said loudly, "Master, then I won't stand on ceremony." After saying that, Bai Jianmu walked toward Zhang Leji again. As soon as he arrived in front of Zhang Leji, Bai Jianmu asked coldly, "Zhang Leji, do you admit that you stole the blueprint?" "Bah." Hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Zhang Leji was furious. He directly spat at Bai Jianmu as his answer. Although Bai Jianmu was not spat at by Zhang Leji, he still felt embarrassed. Seeing that Zhang Leji did not know how to appreciate his kindness, Bai Jianmu no longer held back. The smile on his face instantly disappeared, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Good. Zhang Leji, you have guts. I want to see today whether your bones are harder or my methods are harder." After saying this, Bai Jianmu raised his hand again and grabbed Zhang Leji's shoulder. "Wait a minute." Just as Bai Jianmu's hand was about to grab Zhang Leji's shoulder, Zhang Meng's voice sounded again. After hearing this voice, Bai Jianmu subconsciously shuddered, and the strength in his hand disappeared again. Seeing this situation, Bai Jianmu was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. He suddenly turned his head to look at Zhang Meng and said angrily, "Prince Zhang, didn't you say that you didn't care about this matter?" After hearing Bai Jianmu's question, Zhang Meng hurriedly waved his hand with a smile. "Bai Jianmu, you misunderstood me. I'm not stopping you. I'm helping you. Help? Bai Jianmu was stunned when he heard that. He asked doubtfully, how are you going to help? He Zhang s said sets words mengzzzzzz and quickly ants. Bai Jianmu, you're from the same sect. There's no need to use such heavy means. Just ask him a few questions and he'll tell you everything. After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jianmu was stunned again and asked doubtfully, will he? Zhang Meng nodded and said with certainty, yes, definitely. After saying this, Zhang Meng turned his head to look at Zhang Leji and asked with a smile, Zhang Leji, let me ask you, is that bronze box yours? After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Zhang Leji was overjoyed. According to his experience just now, Zhang Meng was here to help him, so he quickly answered. No, Prince Zhang, the bronze box really isn't mine. Seeing that Zhang Leji was a little emotional, Zhang Meng quickly waved his hand and motioned for him to calm down. Zhang Leji, no one will believe you if you say that. Give us some evidence to prove that the bronze box isn't yours. Only then will we believe you. After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Zhang Leji smiled bitterly and shook his head. No, I don't have any evidence. There's no way to prove that the bronze box isn't mine. Zhang Meng nodded when he heard this. He slowly walked around Zhang Leji and asked, Zhang Leji, do you know where your master put the blueprint? Zhang Leji shook his head. I don't know. Zhang Meng heard this and clapped his hands fiercely. That settles it. Since you don't know where your master put the blueprint, it's naturally impossible for you to steal it. At this point, Zhang Meng turned to look at Bai Jianmu and asked with a smile, Bai Jianmu, you heard it too. Zhang Leji is the same as everyone else. He doesn't know where the blueprint is placed. Naturally, it's impossible for him to steal it. From the beginning, Bai Jianmu didn't believe that Zhang Meng was here to help. At this moment, after hearing the conversation between Zhang Meng and Zhang Leji, he was even more certain that Zhang Meng was here to speak up for Zhang Leji. When he heard Zhang Meng's question, Bai Jianmu sneered. Prince Zhang, I understand that you still haven't given up and want to speak up for Zhang Leji. At this point, Bai Jianmu paused for a moment before continuing. However, it seems impossible for you to use this to quibble on behalf of Zhang Leji. I admit that Zhang Leji doesn't know where my master put the blueprint, but what's the deal with the bronze box? Why was my master's bronze box found under his bed? Prince Zhang, you have to give me an explanation. Tell me why the bronze box was found under Zhang Leji's bed. When Zhang Meng heard this, he smiled and waved his hand. Bai Jianmu, don't be angry at me. It's useless for you to ask me why the bronze box was found under Zhang Leji's bed. We have to ask Zhang Leji. Only he can answer your question. At this point, Zhang Meng turned to look at Zhang Leji and asked again. Zhang Leji, come and tell Bai Jianmu why the bronze box was found under your bed. At this moment, Zhang Leji couldn't understand what Zhang Meng was thinking. He had already asked the questions he wanted to ask just now. Was there any meaning in asking them again? However, Zhang Leji knew that Zhang Meng was his last hope. If he held on tightly to Zhang Meng, he might still be saved. If Prince Zhang didn't save him, he was afraid that Bai Jianmu would cripple him in the next moment. Prince Zhang, to be honest, I don't know why the bronze box was found under my bed, but I suspect Zhang Leji wanted to say that he suspected Bai Jianmu of framing him, so he put the bronze box under his bed. However, before he could finish, Zhang Meng waved his hand and interrupted him. After stopping Zhang Leji from continuing, Zhang Meng turned to Bai Jianmu and asked with a smile, Bai Jianmu, did you hear Zhang Leji's answer? After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Bai Jianmu was furious. Heard Zhang Leji's answer? What did he hear? Zhang Leji didn't say anything. Zhang Leji only said that he didn't know. Other than that, he didn't say anything else. Bai Jianmu looked at Zhang Meng in confusion, not understanding what Zhang Meng wanted to ask. Seeing that Bai Jianmu didn't answer his question, Zhang Meng asked again. Bai Jianmu, Zhang Leji already said that he didn't know. Chapter 281. Zhang Meng said. Zhang Leji said that he didn't know why the bronze box was under his bed. Bai Jinmu was stunned when he heard Zhang Meng's question. After a while, Bai Jinmu looked at Zhang Meng angrily and said, Prince Zhang, Zhang Leji said that he didn't know how the bronze box was under his bed. Do you think we should believe that? At this point, Bai Jinmu sneered. Young Master Zhang, don't forget that I found the bronze box under Zhang Leji's bed. Now that the evidence is conclusive, even if he wants to deny it, I'm afraid he can't. I advise young Master Zhang not to worry and not to make any useless excuses. Zhang Meng waved his hand. I'm not defending Zhang Leji. What I want to say now is that Zhang Leji didn't know where the blueprint was kept, right? Bai Jinmu nodded in agreement. Zhang Meng said, since he didn't know where the blueprint was kept, it's impossible for him to steal it. Zhang Meng didn't wait for Bai Jinmu to answer and continued. Since Zhang Leji didn't steal the blueprint, where did the bronze box come from? After listening to Zhang Meng's question, Bai Jinmu said coldly, Prince Zhang, you were in the hall just now, so you heard what everyone said. If I'm not wrong, Yi Xian must have stolen the blueprint. After Yi Xian stole the blueprint, he knew that he would be suspected by the master, so he left the blueprint with Zhang Leji in advance. After listening to Bai Jinmu's words, Zhang Meng nodded. I did hear what you said just now. Not only did I hear it, but I also heard it very clearly. You also said that Yi Xian didn't want Zhang Leji to know the contents of the blueprint, so he only gave the bronze box to Zhang Leji. That's why you could only find the bronze box in Zhang Leji's room. Bai Jinmu, am I right? After listening to Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jinmu felt that something was wrong. He quickly said, so what? In short, Zhang Leji and Yi Xian must be connected. When Zhang Meng heard this, he nodded. Bai Jinmu, you're right. At this point, I'm starting to believe what you said. Zhang Leji and Yi Xian are indeed connected. After listening to Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jinmu was stunned. What's going on? Why did Prince Zhang agree with me? He was also certain that Yi Xian was related to Zhang Leji. Seeing that Bai Jinmu was stunned, Zhang Meng ignored him and said, according to what we thought just now, Yi Xian knew the location of the blueprint, so he stole it. Then, he gave the bronze box to Zhang Leji and hid the blueprint himself. At this point, Zhang Meng turned to look at Bai Jinmu and asked with a smile, Bai Jinmu, am I right? This should be what happened. Seeing that Zhang Meng, who originally supported Zhang Leji, agreed with him, Bai Jinmu was pleased. He turned to look at Zhang Leji and shouted, Zhang Leji, the evidence is conclusive. What else do you have to say? After hearing Bai Jinmu's question, Zhang Leji was speechless because he knew that it was useless to explain. He could only turn to look at Zhang Meng. When Zhang Meng saw Zhang Leji looking at him, he avoided Bai Jinmu's gaze and winked at Zhang Leji. Then, he said with a smile, Zhang Meng is right. Since Bai Jinmu has already said that the evidence is conclusive, it's useless for you to quibble. I think you might as well admit it. Anyway, you didn't steal the blueprint. Even if Bai Jinmu wants to look for it, he should look for Yi Xian. After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Zhang Leji was really confused. What's going on with Prince Zhang? Could it be that he was starting to doubt himself? Thinking of this, Zhang Leji only felt a chill in his heart. Zhang Meng was his last savior, but if Zhang Meng didn't care about him anymore, he was really done for. Just as Zhang Leji was puzzled, he saw Zhang Meng winking at him again. Seeing Zhang Meng's action, Zhang Leji suddenly remembered that Zhang Meng had asked Bai Jinmu to ask Yi Xian first. Zhang Meng asked Bai Jinmu to ask Yi Xian first, but Bai Jinmu wanted to ask him first. Zhang Leji naturally knew what Bai Jinmu's purpose was. The reason why Zhang Meng asked Bai Jinmu to ask Yi Xian first was because he knew what Bai Jinmu wanted to do to him. Prince Zhang didn't want him to be hurt by Bai Jinmu. Now, Prince Zhang wanted him to push the blame to Yi Xian because he didn't want him to be hurt. Zhang Liji knew very well that if he didn't do as Prince Zhang said, Bai Jianmu would definitely make a move on him in the next moment. However, even though he knew that Prince Zhang had good intentions, Zhang Liji still wanted him to betray Yi Xian. No, he wanted him to frame Yi Xian. Zhang Liji already knew that Bai Jianmu was the one who stole the blueprint. Zhang Liji would never do something like framing a good person. Therefore, even though he knew that Prince Zhang had good intentions, Zhang Liji still shook his head. Seeing that Zhang Liji didn't do as he wanted, Zhang Meng wasn't angry. On the contrary, he was very happy. Zhang Liji's actions proved that he definitely wasn't someone who would betray his friends. Seeing that Zhang Liji was shaking his head, Zhang Meng quickly waved his hand and interrupted him. He then turned to look at Bai Jianmu and said with a smile, "Bai Jianmu, you saw it too." Zhang Liji didn't object to what I said, which means that he admitted to it. The bronze box was given to him by Yi Xian. After asking Bai Jianmu, Zhang Meng turned to look at Zhang Liji and asked, "Zhang Liji, do you have the blueprint?" Seeing that Zhang Meng had said that he didn't object to what he said when he shook his head, Zhang Liji was annoyed. He didn't want to be a person who would betray his friends. Just as he was about to refute, Zhang Meng asked him another question. Zhang Liji had no choice but to shake his head again. "The blueprint isn't with me." After hearing Zhang Liji's answer, Zhang Meng clapped his hands and turned to look at Bai Jianmu. "Bai Jianmu, see? Even if you don't use any tricks, you'll still be able to get the answer." After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jianmu was furious. "Prince Zhang, you're done? What did you ask?" When Zhang Meng heard this, he smiled and said, "Bai Jianmu, congratulations. Your guess is correct. Zhang Liji has admitted that Yi Xian stole the blueprint." Then, Yi Xian gave the bronze box to Zhang Liji. At this point, Zhang Meng sighed. It's a pity that Yi Xian only gave the bronze box to Zhang Liji and didn't give him the blueprint. Now, it seems that we have to ask Yi Xian if we want to get the blueprint. Bai Jianmu, am I right? After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Bai Jianmu was certain that Zhang Meng wasn't here to help. He was here to mess things up. Bai Jianmu's plan was to cripple Zhang Liji while he was questioning him. Then, he would deal with Yi Xian. Chapter 282. Bai Jianmu felt that only by crippling Yi Xian and Zhang Liji would he be able to rest assured. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu no longer paid attention to Zhang Meng. Instead, he turned to look at Zhang Liji and asked loudly, "Zhang Liji, do you admit that the bronze box is yours or not?" This time, before Zhang Liji could answer, Zhang Meng spoke first. "Didn't he just admit it?" "Not only did he admit it, but it's just as you guessed. The blueprint isn't in his hands." At this point, Zhang Meng turned to look at Zhang Liji and asked, "Zhang Liji, let me ask you, is the blueprint in your hands?" After listening to Zhang Meng's question, Zhang Liji hurriedly shook his head. "No, the blueprint isn't in my hands." After listening to Zhang Liji's answer, Zhang Meng turned to look at Bai Jianmu and spread his hands. "See, I'm right. Zhang Liji has already confessed everything. The blueprint isn't in his hands. Even if you ask him, it's useless. I think you should find Yi Xian as soon as possible and get the blueprint from him." Seeing that Zhang Meng had ruined his plan, Bai Jianmu was so angry that his teeth itched. He said loudly, "Prince Zhang, didn't my master already tell you not to get involved in this matter? I think Prince Zhang should just step aside and watch." When Zhang Meng heard this, he waved his hand and said, "It's okay, it's just a small matter. It's only natural for me to help." At this point, Zhang Meng turned to look at Sun Xinjing and said with a smile, "Branch leader Sun, am I right?" Sun Xinjing didn't care about Zhang Meng's words. As long as the blueprint could be found, it didn't matter who asked. Moreover, Zhang Liji, who originally refused to confess, also admitted to this matter under Zhang Meng's questioning. Most importantly, what Zhang Liji admitted was similar to what Sun Xinjing had guessed. Yi Xian had stolen the blueprint, but he didn't want Zhang Leji to see it, so he only gave the bronze box to Zhang Leji and asked him to do things for him outside. Upon hearing Zhang Meng's question, Sun Xinjing thought for a moment before waving his hand at Bai Jianmu. Bai Jianmu, wait a moment. Since Zhang Leji has already admitted to it, I think we should bring Yi Xian over and ask him as well. When Bai Jianmu heard this, he was a little dumbfounded. He hadn't even asked, and Zhang Leji's matter was already over. His plan to take advantage of the situation to deal with Zhang Leji had completely failed. It would be impossible for him to make a move on Zhang Leji in the future. At this point, no matter how unwilling Bai Jianmu was, Zhang Leji had already admitted it. If he still wanted to pretend to ask, he was afraid that everyone would suspect his purpose. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu could only nod. He cupped his fist at Sun Xinjing and said, "I'll do as you say, master." Seeing that Bai Jianmu didn't object, Sun Xinjing nodded in satisfaction. Then, he sent someone to Repentance Pavilion to bring Yi Xian over. Sun Xinjing wanted to strike while the iron was hot and get the blueprint out as soon as possible. At this point, although Bai Jianmu's guess was that the blueprint was about to be found, Sun Xinjing felt even more puzzled. He kept feeling that something was wrong, but as for what was wrong, he really couldn't figure it out. He turned his head to look at Zhang Meng, also puzzled. According to Bai Jianmu's guess, Yi Xian was the person who stole the blueprint, and Zhang Meng was the person who was going to take the blueprint out. Although Prince Zhang in front of him was suspicious, he couldn't link him to the blueprint. Sun Xinjing felt a little headache. He could only sigh and stop thinking about this matter. Anyway, when the blueprint was found, he would naturally know who stole it. If Bai Jianmu had really found the blueprint from Yi Xian, it meant everything Bai Jianmu had said was true. At that time, he would interrogate Yi Xian strictly. Sun Xinjing believed that he would definitely be able to find all of Yi Xian's accomplices. After the disciple who went to bring Yi Xian out of the hall fell into silence. In everyone's opinion, the case of the stolen blueprints was almost over. However, everyone had a strange feeling in their hearts. Yi Xian was the person who stole the blueprint. Zhang Leji was Yi Xian's accomplice. Prince Zhang was Yi Xian's accomplice. Why was this matter so strange? Just as everyone was making wild guesses, a disciple came to report that Yi Xian had been brought in. When Sun Xinjing heard the disciple's report, he hurriedly asked someone to bring in Yi Xian. Soon, Yi Xian was brought into the hall by the disciples. However, he was supported by two disciples on his left and right. Seeing Yi Xian being supported in, Zhang Meng's heart couldn't help but tremble. At this moment Yi Xian looked like he couldn't walk. He could only walk with the help of the two disciples. Yi Xian's face was frighteningly pale. His eyes were squinted weakly. From his squinted eyes, one could see that there wasn't a trace of life in them. There was only blankness. At this moment, Yi Xian looked like his soul had flown out of his body. The body that had been supported in was just a shell. Seeing Yi Xian in this state, Zhang Meng felt that it was strange. What kind of place was this repenting pavilion? How could it torture someone to this extent? Seeing Yi Xian in such a miserable state made everyone in the hall feel bad. After all, they had been fellow disciples for many years. How could they not be sad that he had ended up like this? Yi Xian was supported by two disciples as he slowly walked over to Sun Xinjing. When he saw Sun Xinjing sitting at the head of the table, Yi Xian's blank eyes regained some life. When he arrived in front of Sun Xinjing, the two disciples supporting Yi Xian let go of their hands. Without anyone to support him, Yi Xian slowly sat down on the ground. After a long while, Yi Xian reluctantly cupped his hands towards Sun Xinjing. "Master, why have you summoned this disciple?" Seeing Yi Xian in this state, Sun Xinjing couldn't bear it. After all, Yi Xian was once his most trusted disciple. He was also the person that he had groomed to become the next branch master. Now that he had become like this, Sun Xinjing naturally didn't feel good. However, after hearing Yi Xian's words, Sun Xinjing was suddenly jolted awake. Only then did he remember why he had summoned Yi Xian. It was because of that blueprint. Thinking of the blueprint, Sun Xinjing suddenly realized that the disciple in front of him, who had once been his most trusted disciple, was the biggest suspect in stealing the blueprint. Although he wasn't completely sure yet, based on Bai Jianmu's analysis, Sun Xinjing was now completely convinced that Yi Xian was the one who had stolen the blueprint. This was because from the beginning to the end, only Yi Xian knew where he had placed the blueprint. In that case, in Sun Xinjing's opinion, who else could it be other than Yi Xian? When he thought of this, the trace of pity in his heart instantly vanished. What replaced it was boundless anger. He had once trusted Yi Xian so much, but what did his trust get him in return? It was betrayal. Chapter 283. Although Sun Xinjing was so angry that he wanted to jump up, he wasn't a heartless person. He still wanted to give Yi Xian a chance. As long as Yi Xian took out the blueprint and admitted his mistake, then Sun Xinjing was prepared to let him off this time on account of their previous master-disciple relationship. Although he could let him off, he would definitely punish him severely. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing looked at Yi Xian, who was sitting on the ground, and said calmly, "Yi Xian, you've had a hard time these past few days, haven't you?" Hearing his master's question, Yi Xian almost burst into tears. Repentance Pavilion wasn't a place for humans to stay. Not only was he unable to see his own fingers, he couldn't even straighten his legs. He had stayed there for 4 days in a row. Being able to come out alive was already a testament to his willpower. Seeing that Yi Xian was sitting there without saying anything, Sun Xinjing didn't intend to waste his breath and directly asked, "Yi Xian, now that things have come to this, what else do you have to say? If you take out the blueprint now, I can let you off this time. You have to think carefully. I'll only give you this one chance. If you don't seize it, don't blame me for the honor of our sect." Yi Xian's narrowed eyes suddenly widened when he heard Sun Xinjing's question. He asked in surprise, "Master, you haven't found the blueprint yet?" This time, before Sun Xinjing could answer, Bai Jianmu spoke first. "Yi Xian, Master already knows all about your tricks. Now, Zhang Leji has already admitted that you are the one who stole the blueprint. Now that the evidence is conclusive, why don't you hurry up and take out the blueprint? Do you want to wait until Master reprimands you severely before you take it out?" After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at him and asked doubtfully, "Third senior brother, what did third senior brother admit to?" After asking this, Yi Xian hurriedly turned to look at Zhang Leji and asked anxiously, "Third senior brother, what did you admit? Could it be that you did this?" Hearing Yi Xian's question, and remembering that Zhang Meng had asked him to identify Yi Xian, Zhang Leji felt guilty and hurriedly shook his head. "No, I didn't steal the blueprint. They wanted me to identify you as the one who stole the blueprint." At this point, Zhang Leji paused for a moment before continuing. "Junior brother Yi, don't worry. Even if I have to risk my life, I won't identify you." Hearing this, Yi Xian nodded gratefully. Then, he turned his gaze back to Bai Jianmu to ask, "Junior brother Bai, what's going on?" Bai Jianmu sneered, "Senior martial brother Yi, you don't have to quibble anymore. Everyone has seen through your trick. In the entire South County branch, only you know the location where Master placed the blueprint. Am I right about that?" After hearing Bai Jianmu's question, Yi Xian nodded. "That's right. I'm the only one who knows the location where Master placed the blueprint, but I definitely wouldn't steal the blueprint." Hearing Yi Xian's answer, Bai Jianmu sneered. "If you didn't steal it, are you saying that other than you, there is someone else who knows the location where Master placed the blueprint?" After being questioned by Bai Jianmu several times, Yi Xian's mind gradually recovered. He also somewhat understood what Bai Jianmu wanted to say. Since he knew what Bai Jianmu wanted to do, Yi Xian naturally couldn't sit still and wait for death. He hurriedly said, "Junior brother Bai, although I'm the only one who knows the location where Master placed the blueprint, if someone really wants to steal the blueprint, it shouldn't be difficult to find the location where Master placed the blueprint. Junior brother Bai, don't tell me that you think I stole the blueprint just because of this? Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Bai Jianmu shook his head when he heard this. "Yi Xian, you don't have to quibble. Since you said that you didn't steal it, why don't you show me the evidence? Or tell me, who is the one who stole the blueprint in this hall?" Yi Xian sneered, "Junior brother Bai, it doesn't seem appropriate for you to ask this question. Ever since the blueprint was lost, I was locked up in the Regret Pavilion by Master. How would I know? Who would know the location where Master placed the blueprint? Junior brother Bai, aren't you asking this question a little too forceful?" After hearing Yi Xian's answer, Bai Jianmu did not show any surprise. He slowly walked to Yi Xian's side and suddenly pointed at the table in front of Sun Xinjing. "Yi Xian, look at what's on the table?" Yi Xian quickly followed Bai Jianmu's finger. When he saw what was on the table, he was shocked and cried out involuntarily. "The bronze box that contains the blueprint." Yi Xian felt his eyes moisten when he saw the bronze box. Why was he locked up in the Regret Pavilion? It was all because of this bronze box. Now that the bronze box had been found, his crime naturally disappeared. Thinking of this, Yi Xian asked loudly, "Where was the bronze box found? Who stole the blueprint?" Looking at the agitated Yi Xian, Bai Jianmu said coldly, "Yi Xian, now that things have come to this, you still want to quibble? Now that we have this bronze box as evidence, even if you want to quibble, I'm afraid it's useless, right? Quibble? Bronze box?" After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian turned his head to look at him in confusion. "What do you mean by that? Since the blueprint has been found, what does it have to do with me?" Yi Xian was really confused. He had been locked up in the Regret Pavilion all this time and had never come out. Now that the blueprint had been found, how could it have anything to do with him? Seeing Yi Xian looking at him in shock, Bai Jianmu was pleased with himself. He suddenly said, "Yi Xian, you might not believe what I said. Let eldest senior brother tell us about this trick that you set up." At this point, Bai Jianmu turned his head to look at eldest senior brother LV Wenkong and said with a smile, "Eldest senior brother, you are our eldest senior brother. If you tell us about this, I'm afraid it will be more convincing." When LV Wenkong heard this, the expression on his face froze. Then, he slowly said, "There's no need. You were the one who thought of this. Junior brother Bai, you should tell junior brother Yi." After hearing LV Wenkong's answer, Bai Jianmu smiled and waved his hand. "Eldest senior brother, you're too modest. I'm afraid that Yi Xian won't believe what I say, so if eldest senior brother says it, Yi Xian will naturally have nothing to say. Therefore, it's better if eldest senior brother tells us about this, so that Yi Xian will be convinced and admit his guilt." When LV Wenkong heard this, he was about to decline again when Sun Xinjing, who was sitting at the head of the table, said coldly, "LV Wenkong, you can say it. Let this evil disciple hear what he has done. We already know what he has done. If he knows what's good for him, he will quickly hand over the blueprint." After hearing Sun Xinjing's words, Yi Xian was shocked. He asked in a trembling voice, "Master, haven't we already found the blueprint? Why do you still want me to hand it over?" Chapter 284. Sun Xinjing sneered. "You found the blueprint?" Sun Xinjing paused for a moment. Then, he threw the bronze box in front of Yi Xian and said angrily, "Yi Xian, open it and take a look. Is there a blueprint inside?" When Yi Xian heard this, he hurriedly picked up the bronze box on the ground and realized that it had been damaged. Without much time to think, Yi Xian hurriedly grabbed the lid of the bronze box and lifted it up. When he saw what was inside the bronze box, he was stunned. The bronze box was empty. There was nothing inside. Seeing this, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment before he asked in shock, "Master, where is the blueprint? Where is the blueprint in the bronze box? I clearly saw you put the blueprint in the bronze box. How could it be missing?" When Sun Xinjing heard this, he sneered and said, "Yi Xian, now that things have come to this, are you still going to quibble?" After hearing Sun Xinjing's words, Yi Xian froze on the spot as if he had been struck by lightning. Seeing Yi Xian frozen on the spot in shock, Sun Xinjing sighed inwardly. After all, Yi Xian was the person he trusted the most. What a pity! After sighing, Sun Xinjing waved his hand at LV Wenkong and didn't say anything else. When LV Wenkong saw this, he understood what his master meant. Even if he didn't want to say it, he had to. LV Wenkong came to Yi Xian's side and sighed before speaking slowly. "Junior brother Yi, why are you doing this? Just now, junior brother Bai and the rest already guessed how you committed the crime. Furthermore, they already found the bronze box that can be used as evidence. If you still want to quibble now, I'm afraid it won't make any difference." Hearing LV Wenkong's words, Yi Xian finally reacted. He slowly turned his head to look at LV Wenkong and asked slowly, "Eldest senior brother, do you really believe that I stole the blueprint?" Seeing Yi Xian's piercing gaze, LV Wenkong didn't dare to face him. He turned his head and said softly, "Yi Xian, this isn't a matter of whether I believe you or not. It's just that junior brother Bai found evidence to prove that you were the one who stole the blueprint." When Yi Xian heard this, he sneered, "Evidence? I've been locked up in the Repentance Pavilion all this time. What evidence could he possibly find here? Could it be that the bronze box was found in my room?" After hearing Ye's question, LV Wenkong shook his head and said, "No, this bronze box wasn't found in your room." Hearing this, Yi Xian, a look had Yi and Yi Xian, Yi. If Yi was Yi. Of Yi was Yi he. When he heard Yi Xian's question, LV Wenkong smiled bitterly and said, "Junior brother Yi, although this bronze box wasn't found in your room, it was found in Zhang Leji's room." When Yi Xian heard this, he shook his head and said, "Eldest senior brother, I still don't understand. Even if the bronze box was found in third senior brother's room, does it have anything to do with me? Or is it because I placed the bronze box in third senior brother's room that you're suspecting me?" At this point, Yi Xian paused for a moment before continuing. "Furthermore, I've been locked up in the Repentance Pavilion all this time and haven't come out. How could I have placed the bronze box in third senior brother's room? I think you guys must have made a mistake, right?" Seeing that LV Wenkong couldn't get anything out of him, Tang Jianan was getting a little impatient. Tang Jianan knew very well that he had chosen to join Bai Jianmu's camp, which meant that he was on Bai Jianmu's side. If Bai Jianmu failed, he would also suffer. If Tang Jianan didn't want to suffer, then he could only let others suffer. The most important thing now was that as long as the blueprint was stolen by Yi Xian, then not only would Tang Jianan not suffer, but he would also have good luck. When he thought of this, he saw that LV Wenkong's questioning was still not enough to vent his anger, so he took a step forward and spoke up. "Junior Marshal Brother Yi, I'll tell you the truth. The bronze box was indeed found in third Junior Marshal Brother's room. Third Junior Marshal Brother has a good relationship with you, so the origin of the bronze box was naturally from you. So, do you have anything else to say?" After hearing Tang Jianan's words, Yi Xian was really shocked. He turned to look at Zhang Leji and asked loudly, "Third senior brother, what's going on? Could it be that the bronze box was really found in your room?" When Zhang Leji heard this, he hurriedly spat on the ground and said loudly, "Junior brother Yi, don't listen to Tang Jianan's nonsense. They put the bronze box in my room and then framed me. This bronze box definitely doesn't belong to me." After hearing Zhang Leji's words, before Yi Xian could answer, Lu Warong had already stepped forward and said, "Third senior brother, you can't just say whatever you want. When senior brother Bai found this bronze box in your room, I was right next to him. I can vouch for him. He definitely didn't frame you for the bronze cooperation. This bronze box is yours. After hearing Lu Huarong's words, Zhang Leji said angrily, Lu Huarong, don't think that I don't know the tricks you and Bai Jianmu are playing. You can fool others, but you can't fool me. I'm sure that you and Bai Jianmu are working together to frame me for this. When Lu Huarong heard this, he sneered, Zhang Leji, you said that senior brother Bai and I worked together to frame you. Show me the evidence. Who can prove that the bronze box doesn't belong to you? If you don't have evidence, don't speak carelessly. Otherwise, people will laugh at you. Zhang Leji said angrily. Yu Yixian looked at Zhang Leji and Lu Huarong in shock. He didn't know what was going on. In his memory, Lu Huarong wasn't like this. How could an honest and taciturn person dare to go head-to-head with his third senior brother and not yield an inch? He had been locked up in the Repentance Pavilion for a few days. What exactly happened outside? Why did everyone change so much? Master thought that he was the one who stole the blueprint. Big senior brother also thought that he was the one who stole the blueprint. Second senior brother even directly pointed out that he was the one who stole the blueprint. Lu Huarong even took out the evidence to point out that he was the one who stole the blueprint. As for Bai Jianmu, needless to say, just by looking at his cold smile, Yi Xian could guess what he was thinking. What exactly happened? Yi Xian turned to look at Sun Xinjing, and saw that Sun Xinjing was also looking at him coldly. Seeing his master's gaze, Yi Xian suddenly felt a chill in his heart. He had been locked up in the Repentance Pavilion for 4 days. He had always believed that his master would definitely find the one who stole the blueprint and clear his name. It was also because of this belief that he was able to stay in that pitch-black Repentance Pavilion for 4 whole days without having a mental breakdown. He had thought that when he was taken out of the Repentance Pavilion, it would be time for him to clear his name. But from the looks of it now, Chapter 285. By now, Yi Xian had already understood that bringing him out of the Repentance Pavilion was not to clear his name, but to convict him. Thinking of this, Yi Xian raised his head and looked at Sun Xinjing. Before he could say anything, his eyes were a little moist. Yi Xian could naturally feel how Sun Xinjing treated him. Not only that, Sun Xinjing had also told him that he would be the next branch master of the South County branch. Knowing that his master had wholeheartedly nurtured him and had given him such a heavy responsibility, Yi Xian was so grateful that he was about to cry. He secretly swore in his heart that he would always be loyal to his master and let the South County branch flourish. In the past, his master's eyes were filled with love and trust when he looked at him. But now they had all disappeared, leaving only a cold chill. Looking at Sun Xinjing's cold eyes and the cold words of Tang Jianan and the others, Yi Xian kept telling himself in his heart. This was because they did not understand the truth of the matter, which was why they had misunderstood him. As long as this misunderstanding was resolved, his master would naturally trust him again, and senior brother Tang and the others would return to their original selves. Thinking of this, Yi Xian suppressed his sadness and kowtowed to Sun Xinjing. He said in a trembling voice, "Master, I can swear to the heavens that this matter has absolutely nothing to do with me. Please believe me, I will definitely not do anything to disgrace the sect." After hearing Yi Xian's explanation, Sun Xinjing did not answer. His cold eyes narrowed slightly, but he still stared at Yi Xian. Bai Jianmu, who was at the side, suddenly said, "Yi Xian, you don't have to quibble anymore. Now that the evidence is conclusive, what's the use of swearing? If you really believed in swearing, you naturally wouldn't have stolen Master's blueprint. Yi Xian, there's no need for you to quibble. This time, I brought you out of the Repentance Pavilion because I really hope that on account of Master's kindness to you in the past, you won't make Master worry anymore. Hurry up and take out the blueprints so that Master can be lenient with you. Consider this your filial piety to master. After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian did not even bother to pay attention to him. He continued to kowtow to Sun Xinjing and said, Master, this disciple has been adopted by Master since childhood. Master's kindness to this disciple is as heavy as a mountain. If not for Master's guidance, this disciple would not be where I am today. In order to repay Master's kindness, this disciple painstakingly cultivated the mechanism technique so that one day, I can share Master's burdens and repay Master's kindness. Master, disciple would never do such a disgraceful thing. Please believe disciple. At this point, Yi Xian paused for a moment. He choked a few times before continuing. Master, no matter how disloyal and unfilial Yi Xian is, he would never do such a thing that goes against Master's orders. Master, please investigate clearly. The person who did this must be someone else. Hearing Yi Xian's sincere and sobbing words, Sun Xinjing felt a little uncomfortable. He gritted his teeth and calmed the anger in his heart before speaking coldly. Yi Xian, to think that you still remember Master's kindness to you in the past. Yet, you still did such a disgraceful thing. This really makes Master's heart bitterly disappointed. At this point, Sun Xinjing paused and sighed. Yi Xian, on account of our relationship as master and disciple, if you take out the blueprints, Master will not make things difficult for you. After hearing Sun Xinjing's words, Yi Xian was so anxious that he repeatedly kowtowed and shouted, Master, Master, I really didn't steal the blueprints. Please believe me, Master. I would never do such a disgraceful thing. While Yi Xian and Sun Xinjing were talking, Bai Jianmu had been paying attention to Sun Xinjing's expression. At first, Bai Jianmu was a little worried that Sun Xinjing would suddenly change his mind and reinvestigate the matter on account of their past relationship as master and disciple. But after seeing Sun Xinjing's expression during their conversation, Bai Jianmu was completely relieved. At the same time, he understood that the blueprints were too important. Sun Xinjing would do anything to get the blueprints back. Since he understood Sun Xinjing's thoughts, Bai Jianmu was not going to be polite anymore. He directly shouted at Yi Xian, who was bitterly defending himself. Yi Xian, what are you still talking about? Master has already given you a chance on account of our past relationship. As long as you obediently hand over the blueprints now, Master will naturally let you live. At this point, Bai Jianmu snorted coldly. Yi Xian, don't think that just because Master trusts you, you can do whatever you want. I can tell you that if you don't hand over the blueprints now, don't blame me for being rude. At this moment, Yi Xian was fuming. After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, he stood up abruptly and pointed at Bai Jianmu angrily. Bai Jianmu, don't you dare! If it were in the past, Bai Jianmu would definitely back off if Yi Xian scolded him like this. But it was different now. Sun Xinjing had already tacitly allowed him to do something. In that case, Yi Xian was nothing in his eyes. In the face of Yi Xian's accusation, Bai Jianmu sneered. Yi Xian, if you still refuse to come to your senses and refuse to hand over the blueprints, then don't blame me for taking action. Seeing Bai Jianmu's overbearing attitude, Yi Xian's anger surged. His eyes were wide open as he took a step forward and shouted loudly. Bai Jianmu, as a junior brother, you offended your superiors and even dared to speak rudely. How should you be punished? In the past, Bai Jianmu had always tolerated Yi Xian. Things were different now. Seeing that Yi Xian was still berating him like before, Bai Jianmu did not say anything. He suddenly reached out and grabbed Yi Xian's shoulder at lightning speed. Yi Xian, are you going to hand over the blueprints or not? As he spoke, Bai Jianmu slowly increased the strength of his hand. He wanted to make Yi Xian suffer a little first. Although Yi Xian was the fourth senior brother, his martial arts were far inferior to Bai Jianmu's. At this moment, Yi Xian's shoulder was grabbed by Bai Jianmu. In just a moment, he felt a sharp pain coming from where he was grabbed. This pain was getting stronger and stronger. It was so painful that cold sweat broke out on Yi Xian's forehead. He wanted to say something, but he could not say it. Although this pain was very painful, so painful that Yi Xian wanted to shout out loud, when he saw Bai Jianmu's cold smile, Yi Xian forcibly swallowed back the words he wanted to shout and held on bitterly. Bai Jianmu's move was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he had grabbed Yi Xian's shoulder. And the crowd only saw a blur before Bai Jianmu had already grabbed Yi Xian. Immediately after, the crowd saw more and more cold sweat break out on Yi Xian's forehead. His originally pale face became somewhat distorted. Seeing this scene, the crowd could not bear to see it, but they did not dare to step forward to persuade him. In the end, LV Wenkong suddenly sighed and stepped forward to say, "Junior brother Bai, this matter has not been decided yet. It's better to hold off for now. It won't be too late for you to make a move when the matter is clarified." After listening to LV Wenkong's advice, Bai Jianmu did not want to listen, but he knew that he could not go too far. Chapter 286. It wasn't that Bai Jianmu didn't want to cripple Yi Xian, but he knew very well that if he crippled Yi Xian without Sun Xinjing's permission, it wouldn't do him any good in the future. If Sun Xinjing saw that Bai Jianmu was disobedient, then even if Yi Xian and Zhang Leji were both killed, Bai Jianmu might not be able to become the leader. In order to secure the position of leader, Bai Jianmu still needed to put on an act in front of Sun Xinjing. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu slowly withdrew his hand and retreated to the side. At the same time, he shouted again, "Yi Xian, on account of senior brother, I'll give you one more chance. If you don't take out the blueprint, don't blame me for being rude." Yi Xian, who was in so much pain that he couldn't speak, suddenly felt the pain in his shoulder loosen. He quickly reached out to massage his shoulder, but it was still extremely painful. Hearing Bai Jianmu's question, Yi Xian took a few deep breaths before shouting sternly, "Bai Jianmu, how dare you attack senior brother? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the sect?" Bai Jianmu sneered. "Senior brother, you're still my senior brother. You stole the sect's blueprint, so you'll be expelled by master sooner or later. Are you still my senior brother then?" At this point, Bai Jianmu paused for a moment before continuing. "Yi Xian, now that the evidence is conclusive, even senior brother won't be able to save you if you don't take out the blueprint." After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at LV Wenkong and asked in a trembling voice, "Senior brother, do you really suspect that I stole the blueprint?" Hearing Yi Xian's question, LV Wenkong hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly and said in a low voice, "Junior brother, I'm not the only one who suspects that you stole the blueprint. Everyone thinks that you stole the blueprint." Yi Xian was stunned. After a while, he looked around and asked in a trembling voice, "Do you really think that I stole the blueprint?" No one answered Yi Xian's question. However, when they saw Yi Xian looking over, they all lowered their heads and avoided his gaze. Seeing everyone's reaction, Yi Xian could only feel his heart sink. At the same time, he felt a chill in his heart. Although he was in the Repentance Pavilion, there was always a glimmer of hope in his heart, which was why he had been able to hold on until now. At this moment, Yi Xian only felt that the glimmer of hope in his heart was slowly disappearing. Instead, it was replaced by an inexplicable fear. Everyone was suspicious of him. In fact, everyone believed that he was the one who stole the blueprint. This fear was getting heavier and heavier in Yi Xian's heart. It was so heavy that he almost could not breathe. He was clearly not the one who stole the blueprint. Why did so many people believe that he stole the blueprint? Ever since the blueprint was sent to the South County branch, he had not even seen the blueprint. How did he become the one who stole the blueprint? Yi Xian felt like he was sitting in a 10,000-year-old ice cellar. The coldness around him made his body gradually stiffen. Yi Xian's gaze finally fell on Zhang Leji. Seeing Zhang Leji's appearance, Yi Xian suddenly felt a wave of sadness in his heart. He suddenly asked loudly, "Third senior brother, you don't believe that I stole the blueprint, right?" Hearing Yi Xian's question, Zhang Liji nodded sadly and said with a bitter smile, "I believe that you're definitely not the one who stole the blueprint." Zhang Liji's words gave Yi Xian a glimmer of hope. He suddenly turned around to look at Sun Xinjing and said loudly, "Sun Xinjing, Master, can this disciple guarantee that I definitely didn't steal the blueprint? Someone else did?" Hearing Yi Xian's question, Sun Xinjing sighed. Although Yi Xian did not look like someone who stole the blueprint, with the bronze box as evidence, he had to believe this fact. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing's tone softened. "Yi Xian, since you said that you didn't steal the blueprint, then tell me, who stole the blueprint? What evidence do you have to prove that you didn't steal the blueprint?" Yi Xian quickly replied, "Master, I don't have any evidence to prove that I didn't steal the blueprint, but what evidence do I have to prove that I stole the blueprint?" Sun Xinjing pointed at the bronze box on the ground and said coldly, "Yi Xian, this bronze box is the evidence." Yi Xian said, "Master, could it be that this bronze box was found in my room?" Sun Xinjing shook his head. "No, it was found in Zhang Liji's room." Yi Xian said, "Since it wasn't found in my room, how can you prove that I stole the blueprint?" This time, without waiting for Sun Xinjing to answer, Bai Jianmu beat him to it. "Yi Xian, since you want to quibble, then tell me, if this bronze box was found in Zhang Liji's room, does that prove that Zhang Liji stole the blueprint?" This time, without waiting for Yi Xian to answer, Zhang Liji said, "You're lying, Bai Jianmu. Don't talk nonsense. The bronze box isn't mine. You were the one who put the bronze box in my room because you wanted to frame me. Junior brother Yi, you must believe me." Hearing Zhang Liji's words, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment. After a while, he slowly said, "Bai Jianmu, I've been locked up in Repentance Pavilion during this period of time, so I don't know much about what's going on outside. However, I think that with third senior brother's character, he shouldn't have done this." After hearing Yi Xian's answer, Bai Jianmu suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. "Yi Xian, you think that Zhang Liji didn't steal the blueprint, and Zhang Liji thinks that you didn't steal the blueprint. The two of you are really the best of friends." At this point, Bai Jianmu's tone suddenly turned cold. "Yi Xian, I know why you said that Zhang Liji didn't steal the blueprint. It's because you were the one who stole the blueprint. How could Zhang Liji be the one who stole it?" After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian was furious. "Bai Jianmu, don't talk nonsense. Why would I steal the blueprint? Why would third senior brother steal the blueprint? You're talking nonsense here. What are you trying to do? In my opinion, you're the one who stole the blueprint." When Bai Jianmu heard this, he didn't get angry. He just waved his hand and sneered. "Yi Xian, actually, I know that you don't dare to speak ill of Zhang Liji now. If you do, Zhang Liji will immediately reveal that you stole the blueprint. Therefore, no matter what, you can't say that Zhang Liji stole the blueprint." At this point, Bai Jianmu paused for a moment before continuing. "The bronze box was found in Zhang Liji's living room. We've already proven this point. The main question is why Zhang Liji has the bronze box." Unfortunately, Yi Xian had just been brought to this hall, so he did not hear their conversation. If he had heard their conversation, he would not have said that. As expected, after Yi Xian said this, he looked up and saw Sun Yinjing's expression. The trace of confidence in his heart dissipated once again. After hearing Yi Xian's words, the coldness in Sun Xinjing's eyes did not disappear. Instead, there was a trace of anger in them. Sun Xinjing took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He asked coldly, "Yi Xian, is this your evidence?" Yi Xian was shocked when he saw this. Although he did not understand what was going on, he still cupped his fists and said, Master, since I can see the blueprint sooner or later, why should I take the risk to steal it? Can't this be used as evidence? Seeing that Yi Xian still believed that this evidence was sufficient, Sun Xinjing suddenly did not want to say anything. He frowned and suddenly waved his hand at Bai Jianmu. Bai Jianmu, you say it. Seeing Sun Xinjing's action, Yi Xian knew that something was wrong. He quickly said loudly, Master, I have no reason to steal the blueprint. I will listen to you. Seeing his master waving his hand at him, Bai Jianmu was overjoyed. He turned his head to look at Yi Xian and said coldly, Yi Xian, don't quibble anymore. Your reason can't prove that you're not the one who stole the blueprint. I think you'd better obediently take out the blueprint and let Master deal with you lightly. Yi Xian heard this and said angrily, Bai Jianmu, I didn't steal the blueprint. How can I take it out? Yi Xian's actions were within Bai Jianmu's expectations. Because he was the one who stole the blueprint, he naturally knew that whether it was Yi Xian or Zhang Leji, they would never be able to take out the blueprint. What Bai Jianmu needed to do now was to make Yi Xian and Zhang Leji admit to this matter. Then, he would use some tricks. When they couldn't take it anymore, he would randomly come up with a location. Then, Bai Jianmu would take out the blueprint from that location. This matter would be perfectly resolved. Since things were developing exactly as he had envisioned, Bai Jianmu really had nothing to worry about. Next, he just needed to suggest to Sun Xinjing that he should use some tricks on Yi Xian. As long as Sun Xinjing agreed, this matter would basically be resolved. Bai Jianmu didn't believe that whether it was Yi Xian or Zhang Leji, they would grit their teeth and not say anything when all their bones and tendons were broken. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu didn't want to waste any more words with Yi Xian. Success was right in front of him, and he couldn't wait any longer. Master, Yi Xian is unwilling to take out the blueprint. From what I see, please allow me to use a little trick to make Yi Xian take out the blueprint. Hearing Bai Jianmu's request, Yi Xian was immediately shocked. Although he was Bai Jianmu's senior, he was no match for Bai Jianmu in terms of martial art. Yi Xian wasn't a fool. He naturally knew what Bai Jianmu meant by a little trick. Since he knew what Bai Jianmu meant by a little trick, Yi Xian hurriedly shouted at Sun Xinjing, Master, you mustn't do this. The person who stole the blueprint is someone else. It can't be your disciple. Please believe me, Master. You mustn't let this villain get away with it and watch us make a fool of ourselves. Sun Xinjing listened to Bai Jianmu's words, but his gaze was fixed on Yi Xian. This was his most trusted disciple, Yi Xian, who was once groomed to be the next branch master, had actually become the person who stole the blueprint. This made Sun Xinjing very disappointed. Sun Xinjing refused to believe that Yi Xian was the person who stole the blueprint no matter what. However, the truth was right in front of him, and he had no choice but to believe it. Previously, although Sun Xinjing had locked Yi Xian in the Regret Pavilion, he was still a little skeptical. He didn't want to believe that Yi Xian was really the person who stole the blueprint. However, things were different now. The bronze box was found in Zhang Leji's living room. This proved that Zhang Leji had the bronze box. Zhang Leji didn't know where the blueprint was, so he naturally couldn't steal it. Then where did the blueprint come from? Chapter 288. Where did Zhang Leji get the bronze box? Since it was impossible for Zhang Leji to steal the blueprint, it could only have been given to him by Yi Xian. Why did they only find the bronze box from Zhang Leji? This was because Yi Xian did not give the blueprint to Zhang Leji. That was why they could only find the bronze box and not the blueprint. At this point, Sun Xinjing had every reason to believe that Bai Jianmu was right. His analysis made sense. Yi Xian and Zhang Leji had collaborated on this matter. As for Yi Xian and Zhang Leji's pitiful expressions, Sun Xinjing sympathized with them. However, he also knew that everyone who was caught would have the same expression. They were trying to use this pitiful expression to deceive others. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing suddenly sighed. He looked up at Yi Xian and asked slowly, Yi Xian, how have I treated you ever since you entered the sect? Yi Xian heard this and quickly said, Master, I am indebted to you. I will always remember this. Sun Xinjing nodded. It's good that you know. Since you know, why did you still do such a disgraceful thing? Hearing Sun Xinjing's words, Yi Xian was immediately shocked. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and quickly said, Master, your disciple really didn't steal the blueprint. Please believe your disciple. Your disciple definitely wouldn't peek at the blueprint without your permission. Sun Xinjing saw this and sighed inwardly. He had already been extremely benevolent to Yi Xian. He had already given him a chance. If he did not want it, he could not blame others for being cruel. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing waved his hand at Bai Jianmu and did not say anything else. Seeing his master waving his hand at Bai Jianmu, Yi Xian was so anxious that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He knew very well what Sun Xinjing's gesture meant. What should he do? Yi Xian only felt the cold sweat on his forehead getting colder and colder, and his mood became more and more anxious. He didn't understand. Could it be that he was guilty just because he knew the location of the blueprint? Could it be that he was the one who stole the blueprint? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly thought of Zhang Liji. When he first entered the room, he saw that Zhang Liji didn't look too good. Could it be? Thinking of this, Yi Xian turned his head to look at Zhang Liji. However, he saw a trace of despair in Zhang Liji's eyes. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's heart gradually sank. He somewhat understood. Just now, Bai Jianmu had already said that they had already determined that he was the one who stole the blueprint. After he stole the blueprint, he gave the bronze box to Zhang Liji. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's heart suddenly moved, and he suddenly shouted loudly, Third senior brother, did you do this? Zhang Liji smiled bitterly and shook his head. No, I can swear to the heavens that I didn't do it. Hearing this, Yi Xian said anxiously, Third senior brother, if you didn't do it, why didn't you explain yourself? After hearing Yi Xian's question, a trace of sadness suddenly appeared on Zhang Liji's face. Junior brother Yi, do you think that explaining yourself would work? Hearing Zhang Liji's words, Yi Xian was stunned. After a while, he shouted like a madman, Why didn't it work? Why didn't it work? Since we didn't do it, why didn't we explain? Before Yi Xian could finish speaking, Bai Jianmu said coldly, Yi Xian, that's enough. Stop acting. Now that we've seen through your plan, it's useless even if you want to quibble. Now that the evidence is conclusive, Yi Xian, I can give you a chance. If you tell me the whereabouts of the blueprint now, I definitely won't do anything to you. At this point, Bai Jianmu let out a cold snort. Only then did he continue speaking in a sinister manner. Otherwise, Yi Xian, don't blame me for disregarding our relationship as fellow disciples of the same sect and attacking you heavily. As he said this, Bai Jianmu sneered in his heart. The blueprint was in his hands. What right did Yi Xian have to take it out? He only asked this question for Sun Xinjing's benefit. If he killed Yi Xian as soon as he received Sun Xinjing's order, Bai Jianmu was afraid of arousing his master's suspicion. Therefore, he asked this question that Yi Xian couldn't answer so that he would have an excuse to kill Yi Xian. The outcome of the matter was no different from what Bai Jianmu had guessed. Since Yi Xian wasn't the one who stole the blueprint, he naturally couldn't take it out. Hearing Bai Jianmu's question, Yi Xian said angrily, Bai Jianmu, I didn't steal the blueprint. How can I take it out? Hearing this answer, which he had expected, Bai Jianmu sneered. Yi Xian, since you won't say anything, you've seen it for yourself. Master has already given me permission to deal with you, so please don't blame me for being ruthless. As he spoke, Bai Jianmu strode towards Yi Xian. Seeing Bai Jianmu getting closer and closer, Yi Xian shouted sternly, Bai Jianmu, don't you dare. Bai Jianmu sneered. Yi Xian, why wouldn't I dare? Don't you see that Master has already given me permission to deal with you? Hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian's heart sank. He hurriedly turned his head to look at Sun Xinjing. Sun Xinjing was squinting at him. Master, I really didn't steal the blueprint. Master believes that I really didn't do it. Hearing Yi Xian's bitter pleading, Su Ning Xinjing suddenly waved his hand to signal Bai Jianmu to stop. Then he asked coldly, Yi Xian, I'm giving you one last chance. Are you going to take out the blueprint or not? Hearing Sun Xinjing's question, Yi Xian said anxiously, Master, I didn't steal the blueprint. It must be someone else. Please believe me. Before Yi Xian could finish, Sun Xinjing was a little impatient. He waved his hand at Bai Jianmu again, and narrowed his eyes again. Just now, when Sun Xian saw Bai Jianmu stop, he didn't have any thoughts of panic. Yi Xian was not the person who stole the blueprint. Even if he wanted to take out the blueprint, it was impossible. After receiving Sun Xinjing's order again, Bai Jianmu had already come to Yi Xian's side. Seeing his greatest enemy in the South County branch, his most powerful competitor, end up like this, Bai Jianmu felt proud. So what if your skills are better than mine? Now you're still in my hands. He thought that as long as he crippled the person in front of him, he would be the leader of the South County branch in the future. His family would also become the fifth elder of the Bai family. When he thought of this, Bai Jianmu could not help but smile smugly. He had worked hard for so long and cultivated painstakingly in the South County branch. After a few years of careful searching, he finally found the location of his master's treasure. In order to find the location of the treasure, Bai Jianmu did not sleep almost every night and secretly searched. How many people could understand the hardships he had gone through? Why did he work so hard? Wasn't it all for today? Now all his hard work was about to succeed. Chapter 289. Bai Jianmu's smile was like the devil's mockery in Zhang Leji's eyes. He had expected that Yi Xian would end up like this even if he brought him out. But he didn't expect Bai Jianmu's plan to succeed so quickly. Looking at the sadness and despair in Yi Xian's eyes, Zhang Leji knew that he wasn't in a better state than Yi Xian. Zhang Leji couldn't accept that Bai Jianmu framed him for no reason and even framed him as the thief of the blueprint. He had hoped that Yi Xian's appearance would give him a glimmer of hope or a miracle. But now Zhang Leji was in despair. The miracle didn't happen. Yi Xian's appearance only confirmed this matter. Thinking of this, Zhang Leji clenched his teeth. His heart was burning with anger, making him forget his fear. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Bai Jianmu. He suddenly shouted loudly, Bai Jianmu, you stole the blueprint. Not only did you steal it, but you also tried to frame me and Yi Xian for it. Bai Jianmu, you'll die a horrible death for doing such a heartless thing. Hearing Zhang Leji's words, Bai Jianmu's eyes flashed coldly. Without waiting for Zhang Leji to finish, he stomped his foot and turned into a bolt of lightning, rushing towards Zhang Leji. Smack! Zhang Leji only saw a shadow flash in front of him. The next moment, he was hit hard in the face and fell to the ground screaming. Looking at Zhang Leji on the ground, Bai Jianmu said coldly, Zhang Leji, you stole the blueprint and didn't repent. You even tried to frame someone else. You don't know what's good for you. At this moment, Zhang Leji was dizzy from Bai Jianmu's beating. He couldn't speak for a moment. Yi Xian was shocked when he saw Bai Jianmu suddenly attack Zhang Leji. He hurriedly turned to look at his master, but his master's expression didn't change at all. At the sight of this, Yi Xian's last shred of hope disappeared immediately. He knew that his master was serious this time. If he didn't take out the blueprint, he was afraid. Yi Xian did not dare to think about what would happen next. Bai Jianmu's slap also made everyone's hearts jump. Although Bai Jianmu said that he was going to use his little hands, no one could imagine how serious this matter was before they saw it with their own eyes. Seeing Zhang Leji lying on the ground, everyone finally understood what Bai Jianmu meant by a little trick. Bai Jianmu smacked Zhang Liji down with a palm strike, then grabbed Zhang Liji's clothes and lifted him up with one hand. Zhang Liji, how do you feel? Are you going to tell me where the blueprint is? Although Zhang Liji was in pain from the beating, the fire in his heart was completely ignited. Looking at the grinning Bai Jianmu, he suddenly opened his mouth and spat at Bai Jianmu. Bai Jianmu, if you've got the guts, just beat me to death. Hearing Zhang Liji's stubbornness, Bai Jianmu wasn't angry. Instead, he was happy. This was the result he wanted. Otherwise, how could he have the chance to cripple Zhang Liji? Bai Jianmu didn't hold back either. He struck Zhang Liji's shoulder with a backhand. Ah! When Bai Jianmu's hand landed on Zhang Liji's shoulder, Zhang Liji felt as if his shoulder had been hit by a speeding carriage. A cracking sound came from his shoulder, followed by a sharp pain. Zhang Liji couldn't help but scream as he was sent flying through the air. Seeing Zhang Liji being sent flying by Bai Jianmu, everyone's hearts were in their mouth. When Zhang Liji fell to the ground, everyone couldn't help but look at their master. Sun Xinjing was still expressionless. He narrowed his eyes and watched everything that happened in front of him. He didn't stop Bai Jianmu, but it didn't mean that he had the heart to watch what happened in front of him. That blueprint was too precious. No matter what method he used, he had to find it. This was Sun Xinjing's current thought. Therefore, even when he saw Bai Jianmu break Zhang Liji's shoulder, he didn't stop him. Seeing that his master didn't stop him after breaking Zhang Liji's shoulder, Bai Jianmu was secretly happy. At this moment, Bai Jianmu knew that his master didn't mind him using any method to find that blueprint. Looking at Zhang Liji, who was lying on the ground, unable to get up, Bai Jianmu decided not to hold back anymore. In the next moment, he raised his foot and stomped on Zhang Liji's leg. The crowd heard a cracking sound, followed by Zhang Liji's blood-curdling screams. Hearing Zhang Liji's shrill scream, everyone couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. They couldn't help but turn their heads, unable to bear to watch this tragedy. Bai Jianmu wasn't satisfied with breaking one of Zhang Liji's legs and one of his arms. He wanted Zhang Liji to be completely crippled. Just as Bai Jianmu was about to make another move, Yi Xian, who had been stunned on the spot, suddenly rushed toward Bai Jianmu like a madman. Bai Jianmu, I'll kill you! Yi Xian knew that Bai Jianmu had no intention of holding back when he attacked Zhang Liji so ruthlessly. After Bai Jianmu made his move on Zhang Liji, it would be his turn next. At this moment, Yi Xian didn't have any other thoughts. He only felt a deep sense of fear. Instead of letting Bai Jianmu make a move on him, he would rather fight to the death with Apple first. That's enough, Yi Xian. What are you trying to do? Yi Xian had just taken 2 steps when he heard Sun Xinjing's loud shout. When he heard this voice, Yi Xian froze and stopped in his tracks. Yi Xian turned his head and looked at Sun Xinjing before kneeling on the ground again. Master, your disciple didn't steal the blueprint. Your disciple really didn't steal the blueprint. Yi Xian's face was already covered in tears. He choked on his sobs as he continued speaking. Master, your earnest teachings have always been engraved in my heart. How could I forget Master's kindness for a mere blueprint? Master, please believe your disciple. Your disciple would never steal the blueprint. Sun Xinjing couldn't bear to see Yi Xian's tear-streaked face. He sighed and asked slowly. Yi Xian, you'd better hand over the blueprint. Zhang Liji won't have to suffer anymore. I'll deal with you again. Seeing that Sun Xinjing wanted him to hand over the blueprint, how could Yi Xian do so? He had no choice but to kowtow desperately. Master, your disciple didn't steal the blueprint. Where can your disciple go to get it? This time, before Sun Xinjing could answer, Bai Jianmu spoke first. Master, Yi Xian and Zhang Liji worked together to do this. They're only holding on to hope that they'll get lucky if they don't hand it over now. They all know that Master is merciful. As long as they beg and don't act pitiful, Master's heart will soften. Master, you mustn't fall into their trap. Chapter 290. Tang Jianan was also stunned by Bai Jianmu's 2 attacks. After a while, he came back to his senses. Looking at Zhang Leji lying on the ground, Tang Jianan suddenly felt a chill in his heart. At this moment, he actually felt a little regretful. For things like this, whether it was from hearsay or books, he would only sigh and not have a deep impression of it. But when he saw it in real life, he didn't have that kind of feeling. Zhang Leji was like a broken sack, sent flying in the air by Bai Jianmu. When he landed, Zhang Leji screamed in pain. All of this made Tang Jianan a little scared. Tang Jianan joined Bai Jianmu because he wanted stability. But what was this now? Looking at Zhang Leji's miserable state, Tang Jianan sighed in his heart. Zhang Leji's current state had something to do with him helping Bai Jianmu. A feeling of regret appeared in Tang Jianan's heart, causing him to have deep doubts about his choice. Lu Warong's heart was pounding, and he didn't dare to look at Zhang Leji. He grew up in a farmer's house, and his parents were honest people. He had never seen such a scene. If Bai Jianmu said that it was just a small trick, he wouldn't have felt anything. But when he saw the effect of the small trick, he couldn't stay calm anymore. Lu Warong subconsciously took 2 steps back, wanting to stay away from Zhang Leji as if doing so would lessen his sins. At this moment, Yi Xian was in complete despair after hearing Sun Xinjing's words. He didn't doubt how serious Bai Jianmu's next attack would be. Thinking of his master's trust in him and his loyalty to his master, Yi Xian kowtowed to Sun Xinjing again. Master, I've been by your side for so many years. Do you also think that I'm the one who stole the blueprint? Master, please think about it. I'm definitely not the one who stole the blueprint. Bai Jianmu sneered. Yi Xian, it's not written on your face who stole the blueprint. You'd better give up. A man of character dares to take responsibility for his actions. Since you dared to steal the blueprint, you should be prepared to be severely punished by Master. Having said that, Bai Jianmu slowly walked towards Yi Xian. He was prepared to let Zhang Leji off and deal with Yi Xian first. Seeing Bai Jianmu getting closer and closer, Yi Xian's eyes turned red. He had also heard what Zhang Leji had shouted just now. Although he hadn't experienced the interrogation in the hall, he was starting to suspect Bai Jianmu after seeing his appearance. Bai Jianmu, it's you. You did all this, didn't you? Bai Jianmu did not stop walking. He just shook his head and said, Yi Xian, evidence. Do you understand? You're accusing me of stealing the blueprints, so show me some evidence. At this point, Bai Jianmu had already come to Yi Xian's side and said coldly, Yi Xian, now that the evidence is conclusive, I'll ask you again. Are you going to take out the blueprint or not? After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian hurriedly turned to Sun Xinjing and cupped his fist. He said in a choked voice, Master, please believe in your disciple. Your disciple would never do such a disgraceful thing. When Yi Xian said this, he felt a chill in his heart. This was because he saw that Sun Xinjing had already turned his head to the side and was no longer looking at him. Seeing this, Yi Xian fell into despair. Bai Jianmu, on the other hand, was delighted. His efforts were finally going to succeed. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu suddenly raised his hand and slapped Yi Xian's face. Seeing Bai Jianmu's malicious expression, Yi Xian knew something was wrong. When he saw Bai Jianmu's palm strike coming at him, he hurriedly raised his hand to block Bai Jianmu's attack. Seeing that Yi Xian actually wanted to block his attack, Bai Jianmu sneered in his heart. He did not change his move, but he increased the strength of his hand and continued to grab Yi Xian's shoulder. Yi Xian raised his hand to block. When his arm collided with Bai Jianmu's arm, he knew something was wrong, but it was already too late. Yi Xian only felt a sharp pain and immediately heard a cracking sound from his arm. He immediately screamed and took a few steps back before stabilizing himself. After stabilizing himself, Yi Xian knew that his arm was broken. Just when he wanted to examine it carefully, Bai Jianmu's second attack came. When Yi Xian saw Bai Jianmu, he felt as if he had been hit by a heavy hammer. The sharp pain from his body made his vision turn black. He took a few steps back, and before he could stabilize himself, he felt something sweet in his throat and vomited. Yi Xian took a few more steps back and sat on the ground. For a moment, he was unable to stand up. Seeing Yi Xian vomiting on the ground, Bai Jianmu did not want to let him go. With a leap, he came in front of Yi Xian. He reached out and grabbed Yi Xian's clothes, lifted him up, and asked coldly, "Yi Xian, are you going to take out the blueprint or not?" Being held in by Jianmu's hand, Yi Xian felt like he was going to fall apart. His stomach was churning and he was speechless for a moment. Bai Jianmu sneered when he saw this. "Since you're not going to talk, don't blame me for being rude." As he spoke, Bai Jianmu raised his hand again, ready to give Yi Xian a vicious blow. "Bai Jianmu, that's enough. You've already beaten the two of them to this extent. If you continue fighting, they'll be killed by you." Bai Jianmu had just raised his hand when he heard Prince Zheng's voice. Bai Jianmu was slightly taken aback when he heard this voice. He said coldly, "Prince Zhang, this is our sex business. I think it's best if you don't interfere." As he spoke, Bai Jianmu waved his hand and struck Yi Xian. When Bai Jianmu mentioned Yi Xian, everyone looked at him nervously. They did not know how much damage his palm would cause. It was also at this moment that everyone heard a blood-curdling scream. Smack! Ah! The next moment, everyone saw Bai Jianmu fly backward with a scream. He flew all the way to Zhang Leji's side before he landed. Seeing this scene, everyone was a little stunned. What's going on? When Bai Jianmu flew out, they did not see anyone hitting him. Prince Zhang was still sitting in his seat. Yi Xian was still sitting on the ground, paralyzed. The only change was that Bai Jianmu had fallen next to Zhang Leji. No one knew what had just happened. Even Sun Xinjing was shocked by Bai Jianmu's scream. He opened his eyes abruptly and looked at the situation in front of him in shock. Originally, Yi Xian was already in despair when he saw that Bai Jianmu was about to attack him again. Bai Jianmu's palm strike just now had already caused him internal injuries. Yi Xian believed that Bai Jianmu's next attack would definitely not be any lighter than the previous one. Seeing Bai Jianmu's sinister smile, Yi Xian could only sigh. It's really over this time. Just as Yi Xian was in despair, he heard a voice. "Bai Jianmu, that's enough. You've already beaten the two of them to this extent. If you continue, they'll be killed by you." Chapter 291. The hall was silent. After a while, Bai Jianmu's roar rang in everyone's ears. "I'm going to kill you!" Cough. Everyone was shocked when they saw Bai Jianmu standing up slowly. They had been together for many years and naturally knew how powerful Bai Jianmu was. At this moment, seeing Bai Jianmu's thunderous roar, even as bystanders, they were a little scared. Bai Jianmu stood up slowly and coughed violently a few times. As he coughed, he spat out something from his mouth. When it fell to the ground, LV Wenkong, who was closest to it, immediately recognized what it was. A tooth. Half of a tooth. Seeing the tooth on the ground, LV Wenkong was even more shocked. Bai Jianmu had lost half of his tooth. This matter was definitely not over. Thinking of this, LV Wenkong subconsciously took 2 steps back, wanting to stay away from Bai Jianmu so that he wouldn't be implicated if Bai Jianmu got angry. Looking at the half of his tooth on the ground, Bai Jianmu was stunned for a moment. Finally, he slowly turned his head to look at Zhang Meng. Suddenly, he let out a beast-like howl and jumped into the air, rushing toward Zhang Meng. "I'm going to kill you! I'm going to kill you!" This change happened almost instantaneously. Everyone only saw Bai Jianmu being sent flying. The next moment, Bai Jianmu jumped up and rushed toward Zhang Meng. Zhang Leji looked at Bai Jianmu in the air and opened his mouth in a daze. He only made a meaningless sound and didn't know what to do. Bai Jianmu's speed was too fast. Before Zhang Leji's voice fell, he was already in front of Zhang Meng. Looking at Zhang Meng in front of him, Bai Jianmu's eyes were red and he shouted sternly. "It's you. Did you sneak attack me just now?" Looking at Bai Jianmu's distorted face, Zhang Meng shook his head indifferently and said with a chuckle. "Sneak attack? Do I need to sneak attack to deal with you?" Seeing that Zhang Meng not only sneak attacked him, but also dared to look down on him, Bai Jianmu was furious. Just now, it was because he was careless that he was ambushed by this person. Originally, Bai Jianmu did not want to complicate this matter. As long as he could get rid of Yi Xian and Zhang Leji, he did not want to cause any more trouble. However, this Prince Zhang actually dared to find trouble with him time and time again. If he hadn't reacted quickly, he might have really been dragged down by him. Thinking of this, Bai Jianmu decided not to endure it anymore. He did not believe that with the strength of the Bai family in South County, they would be afraid of Prince Zhang. The corners of Bai Jianmu's mouth suddenly curled into a cruel sneer. At the same time, his fists gradually clenched. True Qi also surged from his dantian. In the blink of an eye, both of his fists were filled with true Qi. In the next moment, Bai Jianmu exerted force on his feet and flew out like a bolt of lightning. His fists were like shooting stars as he rushed towards Zhang Meng. People in the distance could not feel the power of Bai Jianmu's punch, but Yi Xian, who was nearby, could only feel the strong wind brought about by the punch. It kept blowing on his face, making his face hurt a little. His long robe was even rustling in the wind. Feeling the power of Bai Jianmu's punch, Yi Xian was shocked to discover that the punch Bai Jianmu used on him just now was worlds apart from the punch he used on Prince Zhang now. The power was definitely not on the same level. The key was that Prince Zhang in front of him was just a child. Thinking of this, Yi Xian also became anxious. In order to save him, Prince Zhang had offended Bai Jianmu. He could not sit back and do nothing. However, Bai Jianmu was too fast. Just as this thought flashed through Yi Xian's mind, Bai Jianmu had already rushed in front of Zhang Meng. Yi Xian only had time to let out a shout before Bai Jianmu threw a series of punches at Zhang Meng. Bai Jianmu's gaze was cold as he threw out a punch. He swore that even if he offended the people behind Prince Zhang, he would definitely not let Prince Zhang off. Bai Jianmu was very confident in his martial arts. This was because he had never lost to anyone around his age. Moreover, the person in front of him was much younger than him. Even if he had started cultivating from a young age, how high could his martial arts be? Looking at Bai Jianmu, who was ruthlessly attacking him, Zhang Meng found it funny. He had only come to this world to lead the villagers of Mt. Xuanniu to become rich in a low-key manner. He had no intention of slapping anyone in the face. However, this Bai Jianmu in front of him insisted on putting his face forward for him to slap. This really made Zhang Meng a little speechless. However, it would be a waste not to slap the face that came knocking on his door. Looking at Bai Jianmu's slightly swollen face from his slap, Zhang Meng felt a little unbalanced. He did not hold back and directly raised his hand. Before Bai Jianmu's attack arrived, he slapped the other side of his face. Ah! Everyone only saw Bai Jianmu rushing forward fiercely. The next moment, he let out an even more miserable scream and flew out in the air again. This time, because Zhang Meng had hit the wrong direction, Bai Jianmu's landing point was not the original position. Instead, it was in front of Sun Xinjing. Looking at Bai Jianmu, who was screaming on the ground, Sun Xinjing suddenly stood up and turned to look at Zhang Meng angrily. "Prince Zhang, what is the meaning of this? Are you provoking our sect?" Hearing Sun Xinjing's accusation, Zhang Meng smiled indifferently. He looked around at the people around him and said coldly, "Let's go. Branch leader Sun, what you said is wrong. Everyone here saw it. Just now, this Bai Jianmu attacked me first. I just had no choice but to fight back. Speaking of this, Zhang Meng turned to look at Sun Xinjing and said indifferently, "Branch leader's son, Bai Jianmu provoked me. For your sake, I only slapped him. Otherwise, it would not be just a matter of slapping him." Hearing Zhang Meng's answer, Sun Xinjing only felt anger surging up. He pointed at Zhang Meng and said angrily, "You." However, Sun Xinjing only said one word and could not continue. Because just now it was indeed Bai Jianmu who attacked first. Not only that, Sun Xinjing also saw the power of Bai Jianmu's attack just now. To be honest, seeing the power of Bai Jianmu's fist just now, Sun Xinjing was a little worried for Zhang Meng. Cough cough. While the two were talking, Bai Jianmu was already coughing and staggered to his feet. After coughing, Bai Jianmu spat out another thing on the ground. A tooth. Another half of a tooth. Seeing Bai Jianmu spit out another half of a tooth, Sun Xinjing pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he turned to Zhang Meng and said in a deep voice, "Prince Zhang, I will not pursue this matter. However, our sect does not welcome you. Please leave as soon as possible." Sun Xinjing was not afraid of Zhang Meng. The reason why he let Zhang Meng leave so easily was because there was something more important to do. Sun Xinjing had already thought it through. As long as this matter was settled, it would not be too late to find trouble with Zhang Meng. Chapter 292. Sun Xinjing swallowed his anger and let Zhang Meng leave so easily because he wanted to find the blueprint first. He could talk about other things later. As soon as Sun Xinjing finished speaking, before Zhang Meng could answer, Bai Jianmu, who had just stood up, roared fiercely, "No, we can't let him leave." After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Sun Xinjing's eyes turned cold. He didn't expect that Bai Jianmu would dare to disobey his orders. After Bai Jianmu shouted this, he also reacted. He quickly turned around and cupped his fists at Sun Xinjing. "Master, you can't let this person leave. This person is related to Zhang Leji. If the blueprint is with him and he leaves the South County branch, wouldn't he take the blueprint with him?" After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Sun Xinjing couldn't help but nod. If it was really as Bai Jianmu said, that the blueprint was with Zhang Meng, then it was really inappropriate to let him leave at this moment. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing turned to look at Bai Jianmu and asked in a low voice, "Bai Jianmu, what do you think we should do?" After hearing Sun Xinjing's question, Bai Jianmu sneered and said in a low voice, "Master, this Prince Zhang's martial arts are unfathomable. In my opinion, Master should first calm him down, then get someone to bring the 8 great iron vajras over and take him down." The 8 great iron vajras were the treasures of the Tianji sect. Their defense was astonishing and their power was even more powerful. Even an expert in the Hotian realm would not be able to deal with an iron vajra so easily. Moreover, they were using 8 iron vajras to deal with Zhang Meng. After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Sun Xinjing thought for a while and nodded. Then, he turned to look at Zhang Meng and said in a deep voice, "Prince Zhang, you can stay. However, I hope that you will stay out of our sect's affairs." After hearing Sun Xinjing's words, Zhang Meng shook his head and pointed at Yi Xian, saying, "The matter hasn't been investigated clearly, and you're already using underhanded means against him. That's too much." Upon hearing this, Sun Xinjing frowned. "Prince Zhang, I've already said that you shouldn't interfere in our sect's affairs. As for how we treat our disciples, that's our business. It has nothing to do with Prince Zhang." After hearing Sun Xinjing's words, Zhang Meng ignored him. He stood up and walked slowly to Yi Xian. He lowered his voice and asked, "Yi Xian, do you think that there's still a chance for you to clear your name?" After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Yi Xian was stunned. He turned to look at his master and saw that his master's face was as cold as ice. Seeing this, Yi Xian's heart ached and he couldn't help but cry. After a while, he walked to Sun Xinjing and knelt down, sobbing, "Master, I really didn't steal the blueprints. Please believe me, enough." Sun Xinjing was already unhappy when he saw Yi Xian and Zhang Meng whispering to each other. Now that he saw Yi Xian acting pitiful in front of him, he was even angrier. Yi Xian, whether you stole the blueprints or not, we'll only know after we investigate. Hearing this, Yi Xian quickly raised his hand to the sky. Master, I swear that if I stole the blueprints, I'm willing to be struck by lightning. Seeing Yi Xian swearing in front of him, Sun Xinjing was already somewhat impatient. He waved his hand to interrupt Yi Xian's words and said coldly, Yi Xian, it's not that I don't believe you, but all the evidence points to you being the one who stole the blueprints. How do you expect me to believe you? At this moment, Bai Jianmu finally caught his breath. After hearing the conversation between the two, he sneered. Master, don't you see? Yi Xian only dared to deny it because Prince Zhang has his back. Master, as long as Prince Zhang doesn't interfere in this matter, I promise that I'll definitely get the blueprints back. Hearing this, Sun Xinjing turned to look at Zhang Meng and said in a deep voice, Prince Zhang, let me remind you again. Our sect doesn't need Prince Zhang to interfere. Zhang Meng smiled and shook his head. Suddenly, he shouted to the four people around him. Are Yi Xian and Zhang Leji the ones who stole the blueprints? When the crowd heard Zhang Meng's words, they looked at each other and remained silent. Seeing this, Zhang Meng turned to look at senior brother LV Wenkong and asked with a smile, LV Wenkong, as the senior brother, do you have anything to say to me? LV Wenkong didn't expect Zhang Meng to ask him directly. He was stunned for a moment before he slowly shook his head. Zhang Meng turned to look at Tang Jinan and asked, Tang Jinan, you're the second senior brother. Don't you have anything to say? Hearing this, Tang Jinan shook his head. Now that the evidence is conclusive, I have nothing to say. Hearing this, Zhang Meng turned his head again. Zhang Meng asked everyone, including 7th junior brother Mei Guangji and 8th junior sister Li Shuiyan. He asked all of them. In the end, everyone either remained silent or said that the evidence was conclusive. In any case, no one spoke up for Yi Xian and Zhang Leji. Seeing this, Zhang Meng understood that even if no one was certain that Yi Xian and Zhang Leji were the ones who stole the blueprints, no one spoke up for them. After asking everyone, Zhang Meng turned his gaze to Bai Jianmu. After a long while, he shook his head and muttered to himself, That's right. You don't have to ask. After saying this, Zhang Meng finally looked at Sun Xinjing and asked seriously, Chief Sun, now that everyone here believes that Yi Xian and Zhang Leji stole the blueprints, what do you think, Chief Sun? At this moment, after hearing Zhang Meng's question, Yi Xian, who was kneeling on the ground, initially harbored a glimmer of hope that someone would speak up for him. However, everyone's answer made Yi Xian's heart grow colder and colder. There were no tears left in his eyes, only desolation. After so many years of being brothers, at this moment they actually believed that he was the one who stole the blueprint. Big senior brother used to be such an honest and trustworthy person, but at this moment, he actually admitted that he was the one who stole the blueprints. There was also Tang Jinan and Lu Huarong. Not only did they believe that he was the one who stole the blueprints, but they also said that they had evidence to do so. Yi Xian's heart was dead, and he felt that the entire world was gray. Although everyone in the hall was very close, Yi Xian could not feel them. It was as if he had become an outsider in this hall. Looking at Zhang Leji, who was not far away, whose face was also filled with despair, Yi Xian sighed in his heart. In the South County branch, Zhang Leji had the best relationship with him, and the two of them could talk the most. Usually, the two of them would study the mechanism technique together. But now, it had also become like this. Yi Xian still had some doubts about what had happened just now. The bronze box was found in Zhang Leji's room. Then, was Zhang Leji the one who stole the blueprints? Zhang Leji said that he did not steal it, and that Bai Jianmu framed him? Was what Zhang Leji said true? Chapter 293. Yi Xian wasn't sure if Zhang Leji had been wrongly accused, but he was certain that he had been wrongly accused. Although he knew where his master had placed the blueprints, he could swear to the heavens that although he had the opportunity to see them, he had never even taken a glance at them out of respect for his master. Yi Xian would never forget his master's kindness to him. Yi Xian was an orphan who had been adopted by Sun Xinjing. Sun Xinjing had raised him and treated him like a disciple. Yi Xian had once sworn that he would use his entire life to repay his master's kindness. But now that he had fallen into such a predicament, how could he repay his master? Thinking of this, Yi Xian raised his head to look at his master. He realized that besides the coldness in his master's eyes, there was also a trace of hatred. It was also at this moment that he heard Zhang Meng's question. Chief Sun, everyone here believes that Yi Xian and Zhang Leji stole the blueprint. So, Chief Sun, what do you think? At this moment, Yi Xian was extremely nervous. He stared at his master without blinking, wanting to hear his master's thoughts. Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Sun Xinjing stared intently at Zhang Meng's face. After a while, he slowly replied. Prince Zhang, I would also like to ask, why are you protecting Yi Xian and Zhang Leji? Or are you really in cahoots with Yi Xian and Zhang Leji? Hearing Sun Xinjing's answer, Yi Xian was slightly disappointed. But at the same time, he listened carefully to see how Prince Zhang would respond. Because of this question, he was also puzzled. From the beginning, he felt that Prince Zhang was indeed protecting him. But the point was, why was Prince Zhang protecting him? Could it be? With that thought in mind, Yi Xian turned to look at Zhang Leji. Could it be that Prince Zhang was really in cahoots with third senior brother like what Master said? Zhang Meng smiled and waved his hand. Division Leader Sun, you're thinking too much. This is my first time coming to the South County branch. I've only heard of the names Yi Xian and Zhang Leji not long ago. How could they be related? After listening to Zhang Meng's answer, Sun Xinjing did not intend to let him go. He continued to ask, Prince Zhang, are you really with them? When Zhang Meng heard this, he shook his head and turned to look at Yi Xian. He asked, Yi Xian, are you willing to work with me? Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Yi Xian was stunned. For a moment, he forgot to answer Zhang Meng's question. What did that mean? Was he willing to work with him? What was Prince Zhang trying to say? Could it be that he wanted to save him? Seeing Yi Xian in a daze, Zhang Meng ignored him. He turned around and walked to Zhang Leji's side. He asked softly, Zhang Leji, are you willing to work with me? Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Zhang Leji was also stunned. After asking Zhang Leji, Zhang Meng saw that he did not reply, so he said loudly, Yi Xian, Zhang Leji, if the two of you are willing to work with me, then I will save you from being wronged. If not, then forget it. Zhang Meng's voice was very loud, and everyone present heard it. Bai Jianmu's red and swollen face had already turned ashen. He suddenly shouted, Prince Zhang, don't even think about being presumptuous here. Do you think you can be presumptuous here just because your martial arts are high? At this point, Bai Jianmu sneered and continued. Let me tell you, don't even think about it. No matter how high your martial arts are, you can forget about breaking through the 8 iron vajras of the South County branch. In terms of martial arts, other than Bai Jianmu, the rest of the people in the South County branch were not very high. However, why did no outsiders dare to invade? It was because the South County branch had the 8 iron vajras guarding the South County branch. In the beginning, there were people who wanted to use force to threaten the South County branch. However, after being taught a lesson by the 8 iron vajras, no one dared to come again. The 8 iron vajras were 8 iron men made of fine iron. They were extremely powerful. The key was that once the 8 iron vajras were activated, they would attack the enemy with all their might. During this period, even if one felt that they were not a match for the 8 iron vajras, it was impossible to stop the battle. Once the 8 iron vajras started to attack, They would definitely beat the enemy into minced meat before they stop. It was precisely because of such a terrifying existence that no one dared to have any ideas about the South County branch. Hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Yi Xian's expression changed. He hurriedly cupped his fists at Sun Xinjing and said, "Master, you can't do that. No matter what, Prince Zhang is an outsider. Using the 8 iron vajras on him will probably cause unnecessary trouble." Seeing that Yi Xian was pleading for Yi Xian, Bai Jianmu immediately sneered. "Master, you saw it too. Prince Zhang is protecting Yi Xian and Zhang Leji." As for Yi Xian and Zhang Leji, when they heard that Master was going to use the 8 iron vajras of our sect, they also began to plead for Prince Zhang. At this point, Bai Jianmu sneered again before continuing. "Master, if they do this, doesn't it prove that they have been in contact for a long time? Otherwise, why would they protect each other?" Hearing Bai Jianmu's nonsense, Yi Xian could no longer hold it in. He suddenly got up from the ground and rushed towards Bai Jianmu. Yi Xian had already made up his mind. Even if he died, he would teach this villain a lesson. Seeing Yi Xian rush over, a trace of killing intent immediately flashed in Bai Jianmu's cold eyes. True Qi burst out from his dantian again and quickly covered his entire body. Yi Xian had just rushed in front of Bai Jianmu. Before he could punch, he saw Bai Jianmu fly up like lightning and kick his left shoulder. Yi Xian felt as if his left arm had been hit by a heavy blow. With a cracking sound, a sharp pain surged into his mind. It was so painful that he could not help but scream. His vision turned black, and his entire body was sent flying into the air by this powerful force. Bai Jianmu had succeeded in his attack and wanted to chase after him. However, Sun Xinjing waved his hand at him. He hurriedly stopped and cupped his fists. "Master, please let me clean up the sect and teach this ungrateful person a lesson." Sun Xinjing did not answer him. Instead, he turned to look at Zhang Meng and asked coldly, "Prince Zhang, I will ask you again. Do you really want to go against our sect?" Zhang Meng waved his hand. "Don't make it sound so unpleasant. Why would I want to go against you? It's just that I really can't stand it anymore. That's why I want to discuss it with you." After hearing Zhang Meng's answer, Sun Xinjing said slowly, "In that case, Prince Zhang, please return to your seat and promise that no matter what happens, you will not interfere in our sect's affairs." Sun Xinjing paused for a moment before continuing, "Prince Zhang, can you agree to these conditions of mine?" Zhang Meng shook his head. "I don't agree." Chapter 294. Sun Xinjing originally thought that Zhang Meng would agree to his request because Zhang Meng was just an outsider. This was the territory of the Tianji sect, so the Tianji sect should have the final say. He didn't expect Zhang Meng to reject him. Seeing that Zhang Meng dared to reject his request, Sun Xinjing felt the anger in his heart explode. He couldn't hold it in any longer. He looked at Zhang Meng and shouted sternly, "Prince Zhang, do you know where this is? Who are you? How dare you come to the Tianji sect to cause trouble?" At this point, Sun Xinjing paused for a moment. He took a deep breath and suppressed his emotions that were about to explode. He then said slowly, "Young Master Zhang, I don't care who you are, but since you're in the Sky Secrets sect, you have to act according to the Sky Secrets sect's rules." Bai Jianmu, who was beside Sun Xinjing, had already regained his confidence. After hearing Sun Xinjing's words, he didn't wait for Zhang Meng's reply and said coldly, "Prince Zhang, please return to your original seat. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." After hearing Bai Jianmu's words, Zhang Meng looked at him mockingly. "Bai Jianmu, how rude are you going to be? Come and try it. I can't wait any longer." Bai Jianmu heard this and his eyes turned cold. A trace of killing intent flashed in the cold light. "Prince Zhang, since you want to experience it, then I'll show you my true ability." Before Bai Jianmu's voice faded, he turned into a shadow and rushed toward Zhang Meng. Just now, Bai Jianmu didn't want to cause trouble, so he didn't go all out. At this moment, Bai Jianmu couldn't care less because he could see that Prince Zhang clearly wanted to interfere in this matter. If he didn't take him down, then today's matter would be difficult to handle. Bai Jianmu's specialty wasn't his fists, but his claws. His ultimate skill was called melting ice. This time, Bai Jianmu no longer held back and unleashed his strongest attack. The ice melted. As soon as Bai Jianmu made his move, everyone in the hall saw silvery white snowflakes burst out from Bai Jianmu's afterimage. Silver white snowflakes danced up and down in Bai Jianmu's afterimage. More and more snowflakes fell, and everyone could no longer see Bai Jianmu's figure. They could only see silver white snowflakes filling the sky, rapidly approaching Zhang Meng. Although the snowflakes were beautiful, everyone could only feel waves of bone-chilling killing intent in the beautiful snowflakes. At this moment, even Sun Xinjing was stunned. For so many years, no one had been able to force Bai Jianmu to use this move. Sun Xinjing naturally hadn't seen it either. At this moment, after seeing this move, Sun Xinjing's heart suddenly rose to his throat. Although Sun Xinjing's martial arts weren't very high, he could see how powerful the snowflakes in the sky were. Zhang Qiuming was even more shocked and dumbfounded. He thought that his martial arts were already pretty good. Although he didn't dare to compare himself with the masters who had been famous for a long time, he believed that his martial arts were definitely among the best among his peers. But now, Zhang Qiuming realized that he was wrong. Bai Jianmu wasn't much older than him, but when he used this ultimate skill, Zhang Qiuming fell into a state of shock. Zhang Qiuming believed that if Bai Jianmu attacked him and used this move, he might not be able to block it. No, it wasn't that he might not be able to block it. Looking at Bai Jianmu's ultimate move, Zhang Qiuming began to worry for Zhang Meng. Although he guessed that Zhang Meng's martial arts were very high, he didn't believe that Zhang Meng could be safe under such a powerful ultimate skill. During the time he spent with Zhang Meng, Zhang Qiuming really hadn't seen Zhang Meng make a move. Although Zhang Meng could take back the feather of the Nightmare Eagle, he always guessed that Zhang Meng might have used some other method to get the feather back. Zhang Meng was younger than Zhang Qiuming. Zhang Qiuming believed that when he practiced martial arts, not only did he not slack off, but he was also more hard-working than others. Zhang Qiuming had always believed that even if Zhang Meng worked harder than him, even if Zhang Meng had more martial arts than him, even if Zhang Meng had more martial arts than him, even if Zhang Meng was better than him, it would not be by much. Since he couldn't block Bai Jianmu's move, then could Zhang Meng block it? Sun Xinjing and the others saw Bai Jianmu's move and were amazed. However, after Yi Xian saw Bai Jianmu's move, he immediately turned pale with fright. Bai Jianmu's move was so powerful that it was beyond Yi Xian's imagination. He never thought that Bai Jianmu's martial arts had reached such a level. Prince Zhang was attacked by Bai Jianmu because he was trying to help him. If something happened to Prince Zhang under Bai Jianmu's attack, then Yi Xian's heart would definitely not be at ease. Looking at the snowflakes in front of him, Yi Xian couldn't help but scream. "Stop, Bai Jianmu, stop now," but it was too late. Bai Jianmu's move was so fast that it happened in front of Zhang Meng in the blink of an eye. Bai Jianmu had already made up his mind to not hold back this time. Even if he had to kill Prince Zhang directly, he would eliminate this hidden danger. The plan was about to succeed, but Prince Zhang kept messing up, almost causing Yi Xian and Zhang Leji to turn the tables. For the sake of this plan, Bai Jianmu couldn't care less. Even if there was someone behind Prince Zhang, he couldn't care less. If he couldn't become the author of the South County branch, Bai Jianmu knew that he would definitely end up in a miserable state. Not to mention his family's status in the South Counties by family, if he was discovered to have stolen the blueprint, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although Bai Jianmu could guarantee that his martial arts were the highest among all the people in the South County branch, he still didn't dare to be arrogant. The South County branch's treasure, the 8 iron Vajras, were extremely powerful and almost invincible. Bai Jianmu had seen these 8 iron Vajras before. Although his martial arts were strong, he didn't think that he could block the attacks of these 8 iron Vajras. No, he might not even be able to block the attack of 1 iron Vajra. Not only did the iron Vajras have shocking attack power, but their defense power was also terrifying. Bai Jianmu had secretly tried it before. Even if he used his full strength, he could only cause a little damage to an iron Vajra. Since the iron Vajra's attacks were ineffective, he could only be chased by them. In the end, he would definitely be the one to lose. Bai Jianmu knew very well that once his matter was discovered, the South County branch would send out the 8 iron Vajras to deal with him. No matter how capable he was, he would not be able to escape the fate of being killed. Therefore, Bai Jianmu had been persuading Sun Xinjing to believe that the people who stole the blueprint were Yi Xian and Zhang Leji. Now that the plan was about to succeed, Prince Zhang appeared to protect Yi Xian and Zhang Leji. Chapter 295. Although his attack on Zhang Meng failed, Bai Jianmu wasn't worried at all. This was because he didn't use his full strength just now. Most importantly, he didn't use his best skill. As long as a person used his best skill, he could instantly increase his attack power by 4 or 5 times. Some good skills could even increase his attack power by more than 10 times. Bai Jianmu was very confident in his skills. He didn't believe that Prince Zhang would be able to escape unscathed under his attack. Seeing that his attack was about to reach Prince Zhang, Bai Jianmu was shocked to find that Prince Zhang didn't show any signs of panic after seeing his ferocious attack. Even the smile on his face didn't change. Seeing this, Bai Jianmu was stunned for a moment. Soon, he laughed coldly in his heart. Prince Zhang must be scared out of his wits. He couldn't react in time. Haha, thinking that this despicable Prince Zhang was about to be killed by him, Bai Jianmu's lips curled into a cruel smile. At the same time, the true qi in his body surged again. Instantly, the strength in his hand increased by a few notches. Zhang Leji, who was standing beside Zhang Meng, was shocked by the killing intent contained in the silver-white snowflakes. He just stood there with his eyes wide open, staring at the silver-white snowflakes. Zhang Leji wanted to shout, he wanted to warn Prince Zhang. However, he just opened his mouth wide and forgot to shout. In Zhang Leji's eyes, the silver-white snowflakes danced in front of him, spiraling up and down. Suddenly, the snowflakes spun faster and in an instant, they covered Zhang Meng's body. Piak piak piak, Zhang Leji watched as the snowflakes landed on Zhang Meng's body. Immediately, a crisp sound was heard. After a moment, the snowflakes disappeared and Bai Jianmu's figure reappeared in front of everyone. Bai Jianmu's hand was placed on Zhang Meng's shoulder. He didn't move an inch, his eyes filled with shock. This scene only lasted for a moment before young Master Zhang said calmly, "Don't worry. It looks pretty good, but it's useless." Piak. After sighing, Zhang Meng slapped Bai Jianmu's face with a backhand. After a crisp sound, Bai Jianmu let out a miserable shriek in front of everyone's eyes. He was once again sent flying into the air, flying backward. After flying for 5 to 6 meters, Bai Jianmu screamed and fell to the ground. This time, after Bai Jianmu fell to the ground, he lay there motionless. He did not immediately get up like before. Only the continuous screams from his mouth proved that he was still alive. The hall was completely silent. No one dared to speak. Everyone's eyes were wide open as they stared at Zhang Meng. What was going on? Bai Jianmu's ferocious attack was actually repelled by Prince Zhang's mouth. When Zhang Meng saw that everyone was staring at him blankly, he knew that they might not be able to speak for a while. He turned to look at Sun Xinjing and said with a smile, "By the way, branch leader son, what did you say just now? Can I trouble you to repeat it?" Sun Xinjing was awakened by Zhang Meng's words. He first looked at Bai Jianmu, who was lying motionless on the ground, then turned to look at Zhang Meng and shouted sternly, "Prince Zhang, are you going to behave atrociously in our sect? Do you really think that you can do whatever you want in the Tianji sect with your martial arts?" At this point, Sun Xinjing suddenly raised his hand and said coldly, "Prince Zhang, since you dared to hurt my people, don't blame me for being impolite." After saying this, Sun Xinjing's hand suddenly fell and he shouted, "Bring the 8 great iron Vajras in and capture this arrogant person." As soon as Sun Xinjing finished speaking, a series of heavy footsteps came from the entrance of the hall. The sound was so dull that even the ground was faintly shaking. Zhang Meng quickly turned his head and looked at the entrance. A few big iron men were walking in one after another. "That's right, big iron men." Zhang Meng rubbed his eyes and looked at the door again. He wanted to see what these things were. The 8 great iron Vajras had already received Mr. Sun's order. As soon as they walked into the hall, they surrounded Zhang Meng. Looking at the 8 big iron men around him, Zhang Meng was extremely surprised. He even thought in his heart, "Are these robots?" Thinking of this, Zhang Meng quickly turned his head to look at Sun Xinjing and asked loudly, "Branch Leader Sun, are these robots?" Sun Xinjing didn't know what robots were. He only knew that as long as the 8 great iron Vajras were dispatched, they would definitely be able to beat this arrogant person into meat paste. After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Sun Xinjing sneered, "Prince Zhang, now that things have come to this, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Since you want to make trouble again and again, I can only use my sect's treasure to deal with you." After saying this, Sun Xinjing raised his hand again. When he was about to give the order, he saw Zhang Meng waving his hand at him. Sun Xinjing saw this and sneered in his heart. It seems that this Prince Zhang is not a fool. Seeing the power of my 8 great iron Vajras, he wants to surrender. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing slowly put down his hand and looked at Zhang Meng, who was surrounded by the 8 great iron Vajras, and said with a sneer, "What, Prince Zhang, do you know your mistake now?" Hearing Sun Xinjing's words, Zhang Meng hurriedly shook his head and asked, "Branch Leader Sun, can I ask you something? These 8 great iron Vajras, how do you control them?" After listening to Zhang Meng's words, Sun Xinjing was suddenly stunned. He thought that Zhang Meng wanted to say something to beg for mercy, but he didn't expect that at this critical moment, he still had the leisure to ask this question. However, Zhang Meng was about to be turned into meat paste. Sun Xinjing was not afraid of him knowing, so he said with a sneer, "These 8 great iron Vajras, only I can control them. They will not listen to the orders of others." Speaking of this, Sun Xinjing paused for a moment before continuing, "Do you have any last words?" Zhang Meng shook his head. "Branch Leader Sun, don't be in such a hurry. I still have something to ask Yi Xian and Zhang Liji." Speaking of this, Zhang Meng turned his head to look at Yi Xian and Zhang Liji and asked loudly, "Yi Xian, Zhang Liji, you also understand that you can't stay in the South County branch anymore. F***CK, why don't you work for me? What do you think?" Everyone was stunned when they heard Zhang Meng's words. He was surrounded by the 8 great iron Vajras, yet he could still say such words. They didn't know if this person was stupid or if there was something wrong with him. At such a critical moment, shouldn't he be thinking about escaping? Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Yi Xian was stunned for a long time before he slowly shook his head and said bitterly, "Prince Zhang, Master has been very kind to me. How can I betray my master and work for you? Prince Zhang, thank you for protecting us. Yi Xian is very grateful, but if you want Yi Xian to betray his master, I'll have to disappoint you." Zhang Liji also quickly cupped his hands to Zhang Meng. "Prince Zhang, I'm really sorry." Chapter 296. After hearing Yi Xian and Zhang Liji's answers, Zhang Meng was not disappointed. If Yi Xian and Zhang Leji agreed readily, he would be a little disappointed. Yi Xian and Zhang Leji had been Sun Xinjing's disciples for so many years, especially Yi Xian. He was an orphan and had been brought to the mountain by Sun Xinjing since he was young. After so many years of nurturing, if Yi Xian could easily betray his sect, then Zhang Meng would really look down on him. Thinking of this, Zhang Meng thought for a moment and continued to say to Yi Xian, I know that your master is very kind to you, but can't you see that if you don't go with me, I'm afraid you'll be crippled by Jinmu. What will you do then? After hearing Zhang Meng's question, Yi Xian sighed. So what if I'm crippled by Jinmu? I won't betray my sect. Please forgive me, Prince Zhang. Zhang Meng said, even if you're crippled, you still won't leave the Tianji sect? Yi Xian nodded with a bitter smile. I grew up in the Tianji sect. This is my home. If Prince Zhang wants me to abandon my home and go with you, I definitely won't be willing. Zhang Meng smiled. Yi Xian, you're wrong. I'm not asking you to abandon the South County branch. I'm just asking you to go with me and work for me. Is there any disagreement? At this point, Zhang Meng paused for a moment before continuing. I'm not taking you out to go against the Tianji sect. I just want you to build an auction house for me. I don't have any other intentions. Of course, if you agree to my request, you can only serve me. This time, before Yi Xian could answer, Sun Xinjing was already furious. This Prince Zhang was really a good-for-nothing. He actually dared to poach the people of the South County branch in front of him. Thinking of this, Sun Xinjing suddenly shouted, Prince Zhang, shut up. How dare you come to my South County branch to poach people? Don't blame me for being impolite. After saying this, just as Sun Xinjing was about to order the 8 iron vajras to attack, Yi Xian hurriedly knelt in front of Sun Xinjing and begged, Master, please don't give the order. Prince Zhang doesn't have any ill intentions. He just wants to help this disciple and hasn't done anything bad to our sect. Please forgive him this time. Please don't let the 8 iron vajras attack him. Seeing that Yi Xian was pleading for an outsider, Sun Xinjing sneered, Yi Xian, are you tempted by Prince Zhang's words? Do you want to go with him and work for him? At this point, Sun Xinjing suddenly roared, Yi Xian, let me tell you, you've had a dream. Since you're a disciple of our Tianji sect, you can forget about leaving in this lifetime. Sun Xinjing turned to look at Zhang Meng. Prince Zhang, you've repeatedly interfered with our sect's matters. I've endured it for a long time. Now that things have come to this, you don't repent and actually dare to poach a disciple of our Tianji sect in front of me. Alright, I want to see what ability you have to do such an unscrupulous thing. After saying this, Sun Xinjing was about to order the 8 iron vajras to attack Zhang Meng again when Yi Xian suddenly pounced in front of him and kowtowed repeatedly, sobbing as he begged. Master, please don't do this. Prince Zhang is young and ignorant and has offended Master. Please forgive him, Master. Please don't do anything to him. This disciple begs you. If Yi Xian hadn't pleaded for Zhang Meng, Sun Xinjing wouldn't have felt anything. But now, seeing Yi Xian pleading for help for an outsider, Sun Xinjing couldn't hold it in any longer. He suddenly flew up and kicked Yi Xian ruthlessly, causing Yi Xian to roll back several times before he could stabilize himself. Seeing Yi Xian roll to a spot not too far away from him, Zhang Meng sighed, Yi Xian, why are you doing this? I've already said that you're only helping me build the auction house. I'm not asking you to betray your sect. Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Yi Xian struggled to get up and said while panting, without Master's permission, I will never agree to any of Prince Zhang's conditions. Seeing Yi Xian so stubborn, Zhang Meng sighed and turned to look at Zhang Leji, only to see Zhang Leji silently shaking his head. Seeing the two of them so stubborn, Zhang Meng was a little annoyed and said loudly, You two, you're too mean. In order to save the two of you, I've already been surrounded by these big iron guys. I'm about to be beaten to a pulp. Don't you have any sympathy for me? Hearing Zhang Meng's words, Yi Xian and Zhang Leji looked ashamed. After a moment, Yi Xian cupped his hands to Zhang Meng and said, "Prince Zhang's protection, Yi Xian can only repay it in his next life." Hearing this, Zhang Meng was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. He said angrily, "Yi Xian, what do you mean by this? Don't tell me that for the sake of your master, I'm not even worth mentioning?" Yi Xian sighed, listened to Prince Zhang's forgiveness. Without master, there wouldn't be Yi Xian today. Even if master wants me to die, I, Yi Xian, won't even frown. At this point, Yi Xian paused for a moment before continuing. "Prince Zhang, I will plead with master on your behalf." Seeing that Yi Xian and Zhang Leji, these two blockheads, didn't understand, Zhang Meng was angry, but there was nothing he could do. He sighed and turned to Sun Xinjing with a bitter smile. "Branch leader son, let's discuss something. If I find the blueprint for you, can you please ask Yi Xian and Zhang Leji to do it for me?" Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Sun Xinjing sneered. "Prince Zhang, you guys work together to steal the blueprint. Do you think that I would work together with blueprint thieves to make a deal?" Hearing this, Zhang Meng looked at Sun Xinjing in shock. "Branch leader son, do you still think that Yi Xian and Zhang Leji stole the blueprint?" This time, before Sun Xinjing could answer, Bai Jianmu, who had already woken up, spoke first. "Master, you can't believe his words. They are deliberately acting like this to make master believe that they have nothing to do with this." At this point, Bai Jianmu took a few deep breaths before continuing. "Master, the blueprint is our sect's treasure. Prince Zhang is just an outsider. He said that he would use the blueprint to exchange for Yi Xian and Zhang Leji. Master, don't you understand why Prince Zhang has the blueprint? It's because they were the ones who stole it. That's why he has it." After Sun Xinjing heard Zhang Meng's words, he was already a little convinced. However, after hearing Bai Jianmu's words, he suddenly understood. Bai Jianmu was right. Why did Prince Zhang have the blueprint? Today was the first day he came to the South County branch. Why did he have the blueprint? Even in the sect, Yi Xian was the only one who knew the location of the blueprint. Then, why did Prince Zhang have the blueprint? There was only one answer, and that was that Yi Xian, Zhang Leji, and Prince Zhang were in cahoots. Chapter 297. After figuring out that Yi Xian and Zhang Meng were in cahoots, Sun Xinjing's anger, which had subsided a little, flared up again. This Prince Zhang in front of him was clearly treating him like a fool. He stole his blueprint and then used it to make a deal with him. This was simply going too far. Sun Xinjing was so angry that he raised his hand. Just as he was about to give another order, Yi Xian rushed forward and grabbed Sun Xinjing, begging him, "Master, please don't do anything to Prince Zhang. I'm willing to take the blame for Prince Zhang." "Master," before he could finish his sentence, Yi Xian suddenly felt a force behind him. In the next moment, he flew into the air and slammed into the wall in the distance. Soon, everyone saw Yi Xian slamming into the wall and heard Yi Xian's blood-curdling screams. As soon as Yi Xian fell to the ground against the wall, everyone saw a figure flash in front of them. Bai Jianmu had already arrived in front of Yi Xian. He lifted a foot and stepped on Yi Xian's body as he said coldly, "You traitor! Even now, you still dare to quibble and try to use tricks to deceive master. You deserve a beating." As Bai Jianmu spoke, he exerted more force on Yi Xian. Bai Jianmu let go. Although Yi Xian was screaming miserably under Bai Jianmu's torture, Zhang Meng did not seem to hear him. He turned his head to look at Zhang Leji and waved his hand. "Hey Zhang Leji, come here." Hearing this, Zhang Leji hurried over to Zhang Meng and said apologetically, "Prince Zhang, I'm so sorry that you've suffered because of us." Zhang Meng waved his hand. "It's okay. I want to ask you, do you have any evidence to prove that you didn't steal it?" Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Zhang Liji shook his head sadly. Then, his eyes spat fire. By Jinmu, he wronged me. That bronze box belongs to him. Prince Zhang, please believe me. Zhang Meng quickly waved his hand to interrupt Zhang Liji, and let out a sigh when he saw how agitated Zhang Liji was at the mention of evidence. What's the use of believing you? If your master doesn't believe you, no one else can do anything. Speaking of this, Zhang Meng paused before continuing. Zhang Liji, if there is no evidence to prove that you are not the one who stole the blueprint, what will happen to you? Or rather, how will your master and Bai Jinmu treat you? Hearing this, Zhang Liji shook his head bitterly. I don't know. It's just that I owe master a great debt of gratitude. Even if he's deceived by a villain, he'll wake up sooner or later. Speaking of this, Zhang Liji sighed and continued, at that time, master will definitely know that I didn't steal the blueprint. After hearing Zhang Liji's words, Zhang Meng raised his eyebrows in anger and asked tentatively, Zhang Liji, what if your master got Bai Jinmu to beat you until you're disabled? You'll be that kind of disabled. Speaking of this, Zhang Meng made a gesture to show that he was lying on the ground and couldn't move. Then, he continued. It's the kind where all the muscles and bones in your body are broken. Your whole body is like a pile of mud. Even if you want to stand up, it's impossible. Your tongue is gone, your nose can't smell anything, and your ears can't hear anything. The only part of your body that can move is your eyes. In other words, you can't even move your eyes. Speaking of this, Zhang Meng turned to look at Zhang Liji and asked with a frown, if you really become like that, what will you do? After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Zhang Liji only felt his whole body turn cold. Cold sweat kept dripping down his forehead. Zhang Liji calmed down a little and said with a forced smile, Prince Zhang, don't joke around. Master and Prince Zhang wouldn't be so vicious. Zhang Meng nodded and pointed at Bai Jinmu and Yi Xian in the distance. Zhang Liji, take a look over there. Yi Xian can't make it. Hearing this, Zhang Liji was shocked and quickly turned to look. When he saw the situation over there, a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. At this moment, Yi Xian was in Bai Jinmu's hands. His eyes were closed and his face was pale. His hands were hanging weakly by his sides, and he didn't have any intention of resisting. Bai Jinmu growled from time to time. His hands were clenched into fists, and he was beating Yi Xian fiercely. Seeing this scene, Zhang Liji couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, Bai Jinmu, you despicable person. Stop beating him. If you continue, Yi Xian will die. Hearing Zhang Liji's words, Bai Jinmu slowly turned his head and said with a sinister smile, Zhang Liji, don't worry. It'll be your turn soon. Hearing Bai Jinmu's devilish laughter, Zhang Liji only felt his heart slowly sink, as if it was falling into a bottomless abyss, sinking deeper and deeper. Subconsciously, Zhang Liji turned his head and looked at the people around him. Finally, his eyes stopped on Zhang Meng. Zhang Liji suddenly realized that among all the people in the hall, only Prince Zhang seemed to be speaking up for him. For him, Prince Zhang had also gotten himself into deep trouble. Zhang Liji naturally knew what kind of existence the 8 iron Vajras were. Each of the 8 iron Vajras was comparable to a Hotian master. If the 8 iron Vajras worked together, they could deal with a peak Hotian master. In order to speak up for him and Yi Xian, Prince Zhang was currently surrounded by the 8 iron Vajras, who were comparable to Hotian masters. Seeing Zhang Liji's face full of despair, Zhang Meng smiled and said, Zhang Liji, Yi Xian is about to die. If you don't hurry, I'm afraid it'll be too late. Speaking up to this point, Zhang Meng paused for a moment before revealing his purpose. Zhang Liji, as long as you agree to build an auction house for me, I'll save the two of you. What do you think? Hearing this, Zhang Liji was stunned. He was a little confused. Prince Zhang was surrounded by the 8 iron Vajras. Even if he wanted to come out, it was impossible. On what basis could he save him and Yi Xian? Thinking up to this point, Zhang Liji asked with some doubts, "Prince Zhang, can you really save me and Yi Xian?" Seeing that Zhang Liji was somewhat moved, Zhang Meng was suddenly overjoyed and quickly said, "Zhang Liji, as long as the two of you agree, I can immediately take you out." After hearing Zhang Meng's guarantee, although Zhang Liji still had some doubts in his heart, but when he saw that Prince Zhang did not seem to be lying, a glimmer of hope rose in his heart. However, even if Prince Zhang could take him and Yi Xian away, would he and Yi Xian really leave with him? If they really left, it would be equivalent to betraying their sect. No matter how high their achievements were in the future, they would carry the crime of betraying their sect for the rest of their lives. Zhang Liji did not want to carry this crime, and neither did Yi Xian. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.